What's like one better than a paratrooper, right? Because if my Uncle Joe has it in him to become a paratrooper, I know that I'm better than him.
He was friends with Pat Tillman, the real Pat Tillman, not the myth. And he's going to share stories about Pat that you've never heard before.
I come in and I froze. And I can remember it looked like somebody had taken a bucket of blood and thrown it up on the wall. A big spray of blood on the wall. The body's laying on the ground, prostrate. And the dude's wife is on her knees, their hands on her knees, totally frozen. We're shooting the fake AT-4s at a range, and a guy comes running out, and I'll never forget this. He comes out, he's got a big gulp. And he's sipping on the big gulp. He's like, man, you know the Pentagon just got hit by an airplane.
Looks like it went in the Pentagon.
This is so burned in my memory. I saw what looked like a gigantic Mount Everest mountain-sized pillar of oil smoke. Something happened over there that has stayed with me all these years, and it made me realize like how impactful war is on humans, not just like, you know, not just us in our John Wayne fantasy.
The story about Pat and kind of how he got killed, I mean, I don't think that's something we need to dive into. There's plenty of that all over the internet. I do kind of want to talk a little bit about, you know, the weapon, because I think that's a story that's close to you. Is there anything that, you know, that you want to say about that?
I'll keep it pretty brief. Pat was killed by gun 2-3, and unfortunately, that had been my gun for a long time. I took care of that gun. I zeroed that gun. I cleaned that gun. You know, I've got millions of rounds to that gun. And when I went to Ranger school, that gun was assigned to my AG, Steven. And unfortunately, the shots that were fired that killed Pat were fired by my AG, whom I was very close with, and I invested a lot of time in, and I invested everything that I could to teach that guy how to shoot and effectively employ that weapon. Went into that guy, and then ultimately he was the guy that shot and killed my friend. Our friend, not my friend, our friend. You know, Steven didn't do what he did. It was a horrible accident. You know what I mean? I can't reiterate enough that we loved him. Till was our guy. Tillman was somebody that we all deeply cared about. It was a terrible accident that happened in the confusion of war. And I thought about that for a long time too. Damn, that was my gun. If I'd gone to Ranger school a little bit earlier or a little bit later, I would have been the guy on that gun. You know, 2 months either direction, I would have been on that gun. Maybe I would have fired those shots that killed my friend. And also, I taught the guy that shot him and killed him. You know, was it my training? Was it my lack of training? You know what I mean? How did that influence it? And these questions like stayed with me for a long time. And then we had the 50th reunion the other day. The 50th reunion was just back in October. And I went down there with Jay Parsons, and I saw a lot of friends, and I saw Kellitzer and saw a few other guys. And I saw Steven. And it's crazy because I introduced Steven to Pat. I introduced Steven to the platoon. Like when Steven showed up, he was like I wouldn't say he was nerdy, but he was kind of a sheltered, very like Christian kid. And I was a little bit of the life of the party. So when he showed up, I introduced him or showed him around to the guys, introduced him to everybody. I remember taking him over to Pat's house for Christmas party for for Woody's ugly Christmas sweater party. And I introduced Steven around to the crew. And, Steven is ultimately the guy that fired those shots that took Pat's life. And then we were at the 50th anniversary, and I was walking around in the airfield, milling around in the crowd, and I saw Steven, and he saw me, and we just came over, and like, I thought it was going to be weird. He just gave me a big hug. Just gave me a big hug. You know, it was pretty emotional, and I was like, dude, we have to talk. We have to talk. We have to talk. Pulled off to the side, and like, I just told him what was on my mind. I wasn't mad at him. I was like, I just need, you to know these feelings I've been feeling all these years. And, you know, Steven's been going through it just as bad as I am. I mean, he's the guy that killed Pat Tillman, right? How do you manage that weight, right? And not only is he the guy that killed this very well-known American icon, but he's the guy that killed his friend. He accidentally killed his friend. So we had a really, really deep heart-to-heart. Definitely some tears exchanged. And it was really, really good because now we were kids back then and we're men now. And Steven's been through a lot and I've been through a lot. And we were able to reconcile and put a lot of shit to bed. And now we stay in touch and, like, you know, we're both in much better places.
What did that feel like to release that?
It felt emotional, but I think that, like, the way that I looked at it was much more reverent to, like, Steven's pain. You know what I mean? I was the guy that could have. It could have been me, right? But it was Steven. You know what I mean? And I remember there was a long period of time, and I told him, like, he did an interview on ESPN one time, a long time ago, where he came out publicly admitted. I think it was the 10-year anniversary, so this would have been quite a while ago, but he came out publicly admitted on ESPN. He's like, I'm the guy that killed Pat Tillman. And I remember hating him for it. Like, I know they paid you, blah, 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 blah. How dare you get paid off the death of our dear friend, right? But Steven's been carrying all around a lot of hurt, you know? And my hurt as far as what could have been, or my hurt because my friend was killed, was nowhere near what he's had to carry. So he handled it with such grace and with such maturity and such kindness that you couldn't help but, like, feel like, you know, he's done a lot of, like, work on himself to, like, get through that, you know?
The fratricide, the cover up, kind of what took place with the family afterwards. How did that affect your faith in the regiment? Because there was a cover up. We don't need to dive into it. If you Google the internet, you can look at the Pat Tillman cover up story. Like, it was a really big deal at that time in America. Really big deal.
Look, I will never besmirch the regiment ever publicly. You know, there's a part of the creed we say that says, under no circumstances will I ever embarrass my country. I will maintain the highest esprit de corps of my Ranger Regiment. These are all parts of the creed that we say. So I have to, in this moment, play the balancing act of telling my true feelings versus revealing to the public anything that would besmirch the regiment. And for all the good things and all the bad things that happened, the regiment has done a lot for me, both in my professional and personal life. The closest human beings that I am, because I don't have a fucking family, right? My family is other guys from regiment. My literal family now, the people I consider my family, people I publicly call my family, Marcus Hull and Susan Boykin, they're from regiment. Al Buford is from regiment. You know, my best friend, shouts Pat Bacon, is from regiment. My closest, dearest friends are from regiment. But anyone out there, and this is for us, this is for other 75th guys only, you guys know. You guys know what goes on behind closed doors. And it's not always pretty, and it's oftentimes very ugly, and a lot of good guys get hurt really badly. And some guys who aren't so good move up. I don't really know how to say it, but, like, the regiment is a gigantic, unending family of, like, very competitive, very high effort, very high energy, very competent men that are full of flaws. You know what I mean?
That's humanity.
Yeah.
That really is humanity. I mean, and I guess I wasn't, sometimes in these podcasts we ask, I ask questions that, are kind of emotionally charged, but I respect your decision to keep the locker room stuff in the locker room. And
yeah. I mean, look, you sit down with any bad boy, and if it's just me, like, look, me and Les Sandusky talking, me and Johnny Cardwell talking, me and Chad Johnson talking, man, regiment, man, these in their, regiment in their infinite wisdom, right? it's never regiment, but like Brock Hooten, if you're out here listening, people know that saga. Like, the regiment is full of human stories, but it's that the humans in regiment are a lot different than regular people.
Yeah.
So I will never besmirch regiment's name. They've done a lot for me in my post years, but like navigating the world of and being a fully vetted member of the regiment comes with a lot of like insider baggage that I prefer to keep insider baggage.
Absolutely, dude. My last question to you, and then we'll move on from the Pat Tillman story, is how do you want people to know Pat Tillman that the myth doesn't capture?
He was he was funny as shit. He was funny as he had a very, very dry sense of humor. He cursed nonstop. He was like a super intelligent guy that was always cursing. You know what I mean? It's like he'll deliver you a book report on like geopolitical climate, but like every other word will be like. He had terrible body odor. He was a gym rat. You know, we used to make fun of him. We're like, ew, because his wife Marie was gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful inside and out, right? And we'd be like, dude, you stink. He was like, oh no, dude. And we're like, how the does Marie let an ape like you climb up on her at night? He's like, oh, it's my man Musk, you know? He was like one of us. He was our bro. He was our homie. He was just our North Star. You know, he was the most of us. He was the biggest, the strongest, the smartest, the most charismatic. He was brilliant. Like, he just wanted to have a good conversation with everyone that he was around. He was an awesome dude. And like, when I say that he was special for real, it had nothing to do with the fact that he was in the NFL. It had nothing to do with the fact patriotism. Every now and then, everyone listening who's listening to this, whether you're in the military or not, every now and then you just meet somebody and it dawns on you immediately that they're special and they're different than other people. And he was that person. I think he might be the most interesting, special person I've ever. It's just his energy, you know. He was an awesome dude, and like, you know what? He was one of us. And for the grunts out there listening, he was part of our family. He was part of our family. You know what I mean? We loved him.
I wanted to thank you for diving down that emotionally, and I just want to publicly thank, you know, Pat's brother Kevin, because I know if Kevin would have told you not to talk about it, you wouldn't have said anything. So
no, Kevin and I are still good friends to this day. I'm sure I'll pull little clips out of this and like cap them and send them over to him. Like, the whole reason I'm talking about this is because of the blessing of Kevin. And you know, I'm not in touch with Marie. I'm not in touch with Tillman's parents, but like, Kevin, you know, not to harp on it too much, Kevin, you know, you're still a buddy. You were a buddy back then. And the whole reason I'm talking about this publicly is because you blessed off on it.
Thanks for kind of finishing up that whole Pat Tillman chapter. I think that's an important story. I think that will, you know, really help some people kind of understand that whole situation, and then your own personal, you know, your personal injections about who he was as a human and as a man is super cool and interesting all at the same time. That I remember that whole thing very vividly. It was kind of early on in the war, and I remember that. So it was really interesting to get your perspective as somebody who knew them. I mean, because that was such a big thing in the news. But there's so many things that you know, that hit a news cycle, and you just never really know the whole story. Well,
you know, it's crazy. Like, I was at the Pentagon on 9/11, and then I was boys with Pat Tillman. So I've kind of lived the GWAT news cycle highlights.
Yeah.
Crazy? Yeah.
Especially on the conspiracy side.
Don't even,
So after Ranger School, you know, you deal with the fallout of, you know, the whole Pat Tillman thing for you personally, not the media thing. I'm just talking about for you. And you deploy again, right?
Yeah, I did Afghanistan twice, and I did Iraq once with the regiment.
What, I mean, bro, that's 3 deployments. Those were very kinetic years. What, is there anything that sticks out kind of about that first deployment that you went to, like right after kind of Ranger School?
That deployment was kind of a dream deployment. There's not too much to talk about that one. We mostly did QRF, IRF, which for the layperson stands for Quick Reaction Force, Immediate Reaction Force. that was like the cool guy operator dream deployment, just hanging around in the airfield, waiting for the fireman call, throw on your kit, all the Velcro and the gloves and the cool guns, and running on the helicopter, flying in, and once again saving some Navy SEALs who cocked something up and screwed it up. Rangers to the rescue. I'm sure you're familiar with that quote, like when the SEALs and Green Berets are in trouble, they call Rangers, and when Rangers are in trouble, they call more Rangers.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of just flying around on Chinooks and Blackhawks all across Afghanistan, landing in somewhere, and then doing a kinetic hit and then flying out again. That was a low stress, high reward. That was a cool deployment.
Was that mainly just QRF? You guys would just wait, somebody got in a tick, and then you guys would come?
Yeah. Fortunately, none of our guys got hurt on that deployment. That was kind of the dream combat deployment. Just sitting around looking cool, lifting weights, going to the DFAC, getting spun up, grab your badass black gun and hop on a helicopter and fly around.
And then your second deployment to Afghanistan after that?
That was my second deployment.
Okay.
That was my second deployment total. And then I finished with Iraq, and that one was extremely kinetic. That was supposed to be the dream deployment. And it very quickly turned into just, it was drinking from the fire hose. It was a very, very difficult deployment. Highly kinetic even in the lore of CAG and the unit, Delta Force, whatever you want to call them.
Where were you guys stationed at?
We were in Ramadi at Shark Base. And
what year is this? Do you remember?
this was 05.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the way that deployment started was supposed to be the absolute Ranger operator dream deployment. It's going to be one platoon of Rangers, one squadron of Delta guys, and a detachment of AFSOC 24th STS guys. So we're in a task force doing kinetic hits, hundreds of kinetic hits. Going out multiple times a night, working hand in glove with Delta, the unit. And I was very fortunate / unfortunate to be on that deployment because I worked with the unit up close, and I've been in very heavy, hairy stuff with CAG. Like, they lost 2 guys on that deployment, and we were getting into it every single night. I got blown up over there. Like, we had a helicopter crash and burn out there. CAG lost 2 guys, and like there was lots of like kinetic action and loss of some human's life, like on the regular out there.
What was your job description on that?
I was a fire team leader and a machine gunner, and I was a top gunner on the on our platoon's vehicles, and then also CAG. They had a different sort of TO&E the way that they were moving around. We'd have the 4 Ranger GMVs, and then CAG had 2 armored vehicles, a Pander, which is a small 6-wheeled lightweight armored vehicle.
2 V12 Porsche engines, I think.
There you go. Nice. And then we had a Striker, which was a MEV, so it didn't have an RWS weapon system on it. It just had the roll cages on it, and it was slicked on the inside. So that acted sort of like a mobile CCP. But instead of having a hard RWS, instead of having a remote weapon system, they had a Ranger Bro system up there, which was me with a 240. So I was hand in glove with CAG that entire deployment, and that's the one in which Robert Horgan was killed. And saw a lot of crazy things. Brandon Jackson was on that deployment. He also passed away in a very tragic base jumping accident. Rest in peace, Brandon Jackson and Robert Horgan. Kyle Lamb, the very famous Kyle Lamb of Viking Tactical. He took over as ground commander on that one. Robert Trevino was on that one. Some real legends were on that deployment. So I was fortunate to work up close with those guys.
This episode is brought to you by TitansArms.com, your trusted source for research-grade SARMs. These third-party tested compounds are formulated to support research into tissue selective activity, especially in muscle and bone. Titan offers free nationwide shipping, a wide selection in both capsules and droppers, and oversized 90 capsule and 90 ml bottles. Everything is compounded in the USA, raising the bar for quality and reliability. From the lab to your door, Titan delivers transparent data and premium service. That's TitansArms.com, forged by research, not opinions. What's a vivid memory, maybe sight, sound, smell that you remember from that deployment?
I remember, man, I remember watching Bob Horgan do probably the bravest thing I've ever seen a human being do on that one. We were getting into it every single night. We're doing raids. Every single night we're getting into it. Every single night, kicking down a door, people screaming, gunshots going off. You know, we're fighting in a highly contested urban environment. I remember, for those of you out there who don't know, but for those of you who do know, there's no building code in Iraq. So in very heavily populated parts of Iraq, buildings are kind of put together sort of haphazardly, ramshackle. There's no uniformity to them. And we did a hit one time where it was a 3-story building, but it was in low ground, and we did a vehicle cordon around the building. But where I was in the striker, and also the fact that a striker is a very tall vehicle, we were in the high ground, and then I'm in the tall striker, and then there's a 3-story building that's in the low ground next to us. I just happened to be eye height with the roof of the building. And the way that the unit did CAG, the unit Delta, whatever, they were going to come in and they were going to do a top-down clear on this building. So they come in on the little birds, a couple guys jump off, Bob Horgan and another operator whose name I don't know. They were going to go in and they were going to attack a cupola that's on the roof. For anybody out there who doesn't know, a cupola is where a stairwell that goes from the inside of a building onto the roof terminates, and it's like a little tiny little doorway building on top of a roof. So from my unusual vantage point, I could turn and look, and about 100 feet away, I'm eye level with the 2 D-boys who had landed on the roof of this building in a Little Bird helicopter, and were about to assault down the building. Well, the cupola of this building had like a half metal door on it, like a screen door, and then behind that was a full-size door. So they were having trouble getting the screen door open, and as they were messing with the door, some guys in the bottom of the cupola were firing at them, right? So rounds are whipping through this door, and Bob and this other operator, they kind of turn out of the doorway. The guy rigs a charge, he blows the door, and when he blows the charge, the internal door, which I'm assuming was a lightweight wooden door, goes flying in. But the screen door, which was a reinforced metal door, only the top half of the screen door was taken out. So the bottom half of this heavy metal screen door is still there, preventing them from getting into the cupola. So the charge goes off, the door goes flying inside, and now the people downstairs are really getting after it, and there's a lot of gunfire coming out of this cupola. And I'm watching this. I don't even think it was 100 feet away, probably a lot less than that. I'm watching this whole time because like my area of coverage, my area of security was here, and they were probably just out of my eye line here. And even though I'm securing this direction, like there's active gunfire coming off of this just out of the corner of my eye. So I'm watching this whole thing. And they're trying to deal with this door. And I can remember looking over at Bob Horgan, and he was leaning up against the side of the cupola. I'm not going to get up out of the chair, but he was leaning up against the side of the cupola like he was just waiting for the bus. Cool as a cucumber. And he would just take a grenade or a banger, chuck it down there. Boom! Big boom comes off. It comes around the corner. Send a few shots down the cupola. Whap, 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 whap. Come back and reset. Check his watch like he's waiting for the bus to come. Gunshots come out of the cupola. He'd send another one down. Boom! Follow it with a few shots. While he's doing this, his buddy is pulling out the shock tube and the charge. He's trying to build his buddy is building another hasty charge to defeat this stupid metal door that's giving them so many problems. And I couldn't believe how calm and how nonchalantly Bob was just kind of standing there. He was leaning up against the door like this, like it was nothing. And he would just casually throwing grenades and bangers down into this cupola, and then he'd lean in and engage these guys again. Must have done 5 or 6 times. And finally, His buddy rigs up the charge. I think he went around the back of the cupola, rigged up the charge, blew a real big charge this time. Kaboom, boom. The cupola door comes off. Bob throws a couple more grenades and they go down. And then you can just hear a ripping amount of gunfire going through the house. Clearly they went down and engaged and killed those guys that were giving them problems. But I can just remember, it's like, for those of you who've been in combat or deployed, there's little moments there that are just so deeply burned into your consciousness. It's like you're still there. Like, like it happened 5 minutes ago. I can just remember him leaning up against that cupola door like he didn't have a care in the world, like he was just waiting. And I remember at one point him looking at his wrist, like it must have been his watch, right? Just looking at his watch, I think wondering how long this was going to take. Casually throwing bangers, casually gunfighting some guys who were in the bottom stairs of the cupola, who at any moment they could have ran up and bum rushed those dudes and got them, but he just did it like he didn't have a care in the world. And then after the charge went off, they went inside and they killed those guys like it was nothing. And the level of bravery that takes, and then how to be that calm in that kind of situation. Like, and there's like helicopters just flying around. There's gunfire going off. Radios are going off in both channels. Like he didn't have a care in the world.
I remember you telling there was, I think 1 or 2 nights you went out with the ground force. I think you were in with a unit stock.
Yeah, so I was a new Ranger sergeant, and I was the top gunner on the MEV, and I was a team leader, but I was also a gun team leader, so I kind of had a float position. So when the unit needed a guy for whatever reason, and look, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I was never in a stack with these guys. I wasn't assaulting with these guys. But oftentimes if the unit goes somewhere, especially if they're split in half, right? If C Squadron C Troop is split in half and they got 12 guys here and 12 guys here, sometimes those 12 guys need another body, right? They need another guy. And if they need another guy, they want to have a Ranger NCO versus having a private, right? Obviously. Yeah. So a couple times, me and there was another floating NCO. His name's Adam Angrisano. A few times, me and Angrisano got tasked to be follow-on with these guys. So one night we're going to go in, we're going to fly in, and we're going to do a co-join hit where like the ground force comes up and does a cordon, and then the rotary wing force is going to come in and land on the X and do an assault. Landing on the X is very, very sketchy. It's very, very hairy. Never goes well. That's why if you ever hear the term on the X, that's what that means. It means landing on the X. It means landing directly on the objective. So normally what you do is you offset. You land somewhere far away. You walk in, you do your work. But this time they decided, hey, we're going to have the ground convoy drive in, secure the area, and then we're going to land on the X and immediately assault in. And there was 2 birds, and they had me and Adam each on the bird. So here I am, Ranger Sergeant, kitted up. I'm about to get on a Black Hawk with 12 Delta operators, and we're going to fly over Ramadi, and we're going to land on the X, and we're going to charge in and assault. So,
and for those of people that are listening or watching and don't understand, Ramadi in 2005, go watch the movie Warfare. That's what it was like.
It was the most dangerous place on the planet.
Yeah, bro. It was like that every day.
It was a full city. This is not some bumpkin stuff. This is a full city. So we get on the bird, and I'm pretty nervous. I was nervous every time I got on the bird, but I'm extra nervous this time, right? Not because I'm going to get shot at, but because you want to perform at your peak efficiency with the best guys in the world. We're flying in. I can see the lights of the city underneath of me. We're flying and we're coming in a steep orbit like this. And I'm next to, I believe it's Doug Taylor because he had the white shock. He had the long hair, the big rack, big jaw, big head. Excuse me. Come in, steep bank, really steep bank. I remember this very clear. Steeply banking in like this. Leaning over, feeling like I'm going to throw up out of the bird. Land on the X. Dismount the bird. The bird immediately takes off and it's totally quiet.
Are you guys on Little Birds?
No, these are Blackhawks. There's 4 buildings in front of us. There's 4 buildings in front of us and there's a big log pile. And I remember, I believe, I'm going to call him Doug. He turns over to me. He's like, come on with me. He's very urgent. Come running forward. We get behind the log pile. Now there's 2 buildings in front of us. Half the team going in there doing their assault. There's a building in front of me. There's a target building over here. The D-boys are getting ready to go hit the target building, but they want someone watching their back on the backside building. The building I'm looking at has a covered porch, a big bay window, and I'm totally covering this building. And Doug says to me, he's like, hey, you see that door? Roger. He's like, anyone comes out of the door, you effing kill them. Don't ask, don't say a word. Any human being comes out of that door, you kill them. Roger, I'm ready. They run off. The lights come on the porch. I see a human move behind the bay window, behind the curtain. They stop, the lights go off. And I'm like, this is it. This is going to happen. I'm going to wham on this person. Nothing happens. I'm sitting there for a while, and it felt like an eternity. Of course it wasn't. It was long enough that the guys on B side could get their charge prepped. I hear a big boo. And I hear, Red, come up. At the time, red was the word for Ranger. Red, come up. I break security. I run up to the building. And as I'm at the aperture, there's still smoke hanging in from the charge. I look into the building, and I'm probably less than a few steps. I'm probably less than 5 feet from the aperture. The guys are already in the room. And I hear, I'm going to say between 12 and 18 shots go off in rapid succession. Pow, 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 pow. And I can very clearly hear and remember hearing the casings on the ground afterwards, clanging, the clattering of the casings on the ground. And this man had been in the center of the room, and when they blew the door, he stood up and he had something in his hand. I don't know if he had a weapon in his hand or not. I'm sure he did. He stood up, and when he stood up, these dudes hit that room and just completely vaporized this guy, like almost decapitated this guy. You get shot in the head 12, 18 times by a couple D-boys from 4 feet away. You know, and they were like, Red, get in here. I come in and I froze, and I can remember it looked like somebody had taken a bucket of blood and thrown it up on the wall, a big spray of blood on the wall. The body's laying on the ground, prostrate, and the dude's wife is on her knees with her hands on her knees, totally frozen. And I just kind of froze, and I'm looking at the situation, and this real big, tall operator, he walks across the middle of the room. He picks up a rug, puts it on the face, the mangled remains of this guy's head, and he picks the dude up and like a piece of laundry just chucks him in the corner of the room. And I'm standing there looking at this, frozen, and the dude smacks me. He's like, come on, we got to go. Don't just stand there. Let's go. And we continued, and they were finishing clearing the room. And that was the first time I saw someone die like that close. And I just like, it's, you know, like I just remember the visceral smell of it, the way it smelled. I could smell the cordite, and I couldn't, like, it didn't register with me how much blood, like, I don't know what happened, how it happened, but like, it looked like there was a giant spray of blood on, it looked to me as though somebody had taken a 5-gallon bucket of blood and just thrown it on the wall. And that's one of my more visceral memories from that deployment. There were some other things that I saw that I'm not going to go into. And then another one was, so I'm on the top turret of this vehicle, and I'd like to take a second to talk about Brandon Jackson. Brandon Jackson was a very well-known D-boy. He had been a Ranger beforehand, and he died in 2016 in a very, very tragic base jumping accident. But Brandon Jackson was just the perfect soldier. He was tall, good-looking, athletic, perfect genetic package. Like, just looked like if you were to cast a Delta operator out of Hollywood, you would come up with Brandon Jackson. So one night we're riding along, and we're in the MEV, and I'm on the top turret, and we're separated from the rest of the GAF, the ground assault force. I can't remember what the circumstances were, but it was by design. They were over here, and we're over here. And we have a Ranger driver, Lauren Tifo, and then me up on the top. Shout out to Lauren Tifo. And I'm on the top gun. We got a few D-boys in the back. And we come up, we crest a little ridge, and there's a big open field in front of us. And we got to go through the open field to get back up on the MSR. I'm like, yeah, you see anything? I'm like, nah, just a little drainage ditch. Let's go through it. And we go through the drainage ditch, and I look down, and it looks to me as though there's telephone wire down there, old comm wire, just some old trashy wire down there. I'm like, whoa, stop, back it up. We go to back it up a little bit. Everything looks like, all right, take it forward a little again. And now we're like stuck in the ditch. What the hell is going on? Like, this is a, 20,000 pound vehicle. Why aren't we moving? Forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. Now I'm like, hey, gun it, get us out of here. And the vehicle won't move. And it's a sewage ditch. It stinks of raw sewage. So we're in this field. There's the MSR, and farther away is the city skyline. And I cannot tell why we're stuck. And now the D-boys are like, hey, what's going on? Why aren't we moving? I was like, there's something in this ditch holding us up. I just can't tell what it is. It looks to me like old telephone wire. And one of the D-boys immediately was like, that's not telephone wire. That's old Concertina wire. And I didn't know this in my youth and ignorance at the time, but Concertina wire is actually anti-vehicle wire as well. We think of Concertina wire in the spools as being anti-personnel.
Yeah, concertina wire for all you out there. It's like it's barbed wire. It comes in like a spool, and then you pull it.
It's
what, a lot in the military.
It's what you see on the excuse me. It's what you see on the fences of prisons. Razor wire. That's all
Razor
spooled
wire,
up,
yeah,
right? Well, in my youth and ignorance, I didn't know that Concertina wire is actually anti-vehicle wire as well too. It's wrapped up in axles. It spikes into the tires, and it wraps up in axles, and tears the vehicles up pretty bad. Now, the striker was big enough, it wasn't getting torn up, but it didn't have because of the slick terrain and because of the sewage, it didn't have the oomph to like crack out through the Concertina wire. So one of the D-boys immediately knew. He's like, that's Concertina wire. That's why we're not going anywhere. And he goes, somebody's got to go out there and cut that wire. And without hesitation, Brandon Jackson just goes, I'm on it. Like that. Hops up. He had a pair of 18-inch bolt cutters with him. We let the hatch down. Zzz. Brandon runs out, and it's hot, and it's muggy, and we're in a damn sewage ditch, right? And he looks up. He's like, hey, you got me? I'm like, yeah, I got you. Which means, obviously, hey, cover me while I'm down here. And I'm on the gun, and I'm scanning the skyline. He's down there working, and I hear pop. Sound like a gunshot. Couple more, pop. And in 180 degrees of my view, there's just city, and it's probably minimum 200, maximum 300 meters away. So it's a good distance away. And I'm starting to hear popcorn going off. And in my mind, I'm like, that's not at us. And now I'm starting to hear more and more popcorn go off. And now I'm starting to hear the crack of it near me. And it dawns on me, yo, they are shooting at us. But since we're in the dark and we're in this field and we're in a lower position, they can't really see us because they don't have nods, right? But they know there's an American vehicle out there, and people are starting to take pot shots at us. And I can't fire back because I don't see muzzle flashes. I can just kind of vaguely hear what direction, sort of, the gunshots are coming from. And Brandon is down there furiously working. He's like, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. You good? Yeah, I'm good. And now it's starting to really pick up. And now finally I hear one clang off the vehicle. It sounded like a hammer. It sounded like a hammer hitting the vehicle. Wham! And that scared me. I'm like, now they're really actually for real shooting at us. And I'm tense. I'm on the gun. I'm like swinging the gun back and forth. I'm trying to laze everything, but like I can't see anything. I can't indiscriminately just fire into the city. Because not only A, do I not know what I'm firing at, the idea of hitting a civilian is not even on my radar. But now if I fire on them, everyone in the world is going to shoot at us and they're going to know exactly where we are. So I'm looking for muzzle flashes, and now it's really picking up. And another round whips off of the striker. Wham! And you can hear it hit and then sizzle. Like hit and then ricochet. It makes that sizzling, like hot sizzling noise.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon is just down there furiously working, and he's like, all right, I got it. Just runs and gets back in the vehicle. Go. And then we hit it. Lauren, go. And then whoom. And the vehicle just jumps out of the thing. And we were on our way. And looking back on it, I remember like him doing that. Like it didn't even phase him. It was just a task that he had to do. And he just did it without even, it didn't even, there was no, oh shit, oh shoot. You know, like he just went out and did it. And I look back on it, I'm like, man, you know what? One night my friends and I were stuck in a ditch in Iraq, and then Brandon Jackson got us out of that ditch while people were shooting at us. So like Brandon Jackson passed away, but like, you know, it's kind of, you know, it's sad that he died, but like I got to have that moment with B-Jack. You know what I mean? Yeah. Action Jackson saved my friends and I and got us out of a ditch while we were stuck in a ditch in Iraq, and the whole city was shooting at us.
Were you there when Bob Horgan was killed?
Who?
Bob Horgan.
I was not there when he was killed. The unit was by themselves doing a hit when he was killed. I think myself and Caleb Williamson are the last two people to have a non-military related conversation with him. I took his death very, very harshly. Bob, from what I can recall, was like a rated armor of like big guns. Like everyone knows how to work on a big gun, especially if you're a machine gunner, you know how to work on a big gun. But Bob had some other much higher level of knowledge on how to work on like crew served weapons. Like I think he was an armorer rated or something like that. But we had gone out on a mission the night before, and a sabot is like a sleeve that goes around a projectile. At the time, we were using a very special form of ammunition that had sabots on them. And one of these sabots had somehow gotten desperately jammed into the gun and worked its way into the machinery of the gun. And there was no way to clear this gun. And there was no way to get this thing free. They needed somebody who was a higher level of armor expertise to unfree this gun. And for those of you who don't know, the M2 machine gun is a pretty complex piece of machinery, right? So we come back from the mission. This gun is deadlined. And they need somebody to work on this gun. So Bob, being the guy who knows how to work on the gun, he takes two Ranger machine gunners, me and Caleb Williamson. Shout out to Willie if you're watching. And everyone else goes to bed. And the three of us are staying up working on this broken down tranny, right? And it is hotter than shit. It is unbelievably hot in this garage. We're working on this thing. We're up on this gun. Everyone's knuckles are beat up. Everyone's cursing. This gun is just kicking our butts. And not only that, but we're missing precious sleep time working on this stupid gun with this stupid sabot. It's stupid jammed in here. We're pouring sweat. And this is another one of those moments I can just remember so clearly. Bob says, hold on, I'll be right back. He had a little bit of a Texas drawl. I'm not even going to attempt to do it, but he hops down off the gun and goes inside. He comes back out, and he had cold blue Gatorades. And I remember him flipping it up to me. And this is another one of those silly little memories I have. I can still remember seeing that Gatorade flip through the air with like the sweat on it and catching it, right? And remembering how cool it was, and then opening it and how good it tasted. And then he hopped back up on the gun. He's like, man, let's take a little break. He's like, this gun ain't going nowhere. And we just started talking about being back home. And he was really, like, it was weird. He had this, like, really warm, sort of fatherly energy, which is very unusual. A lot of guys from the unit do not have that energy. Like, a lot of those guys are, like, I would say benevolent sociopaths. You know what I mean? They're wired even different than Rangers are. They're killers. But he had this real warm energy. He was getting ready to go home. And he cracked a little joke. He's like, man, this is just like we're back at home working on a car in the garage, right? And he kind of broke the mood, kind of like, brought the mood up. We finally get this stupid gun taken care of, and like we went to bed, and then they flew out, and that day he was killed. So like I kind of feel like me and Caleb Willie were some of the last guys to have like a normal non-military related conversation with him.
Yeah, sometimes on these podcasts, man, I mean, we talk about war stories, right? Because war is hell. And I think I've said this before. I think only the dead have truly seen the end of war. But I think there's a lot lost in the human moments, man. Not the combat, not the gunfights, man. you're still a human. Like there's still conversations and jokes and those human moments. And your stories remind me of that. The very human aspect of men, right? Warriors are still men. We're still human. We're not invincible. And I think sometimes it's good. It's good to remember people, to remember those stories. You know, I've said it before. We're in the middle of running a series right now on Master Sergeant Gregory Trent, who died. We interviewed half of his ODA, and you know, I learned while we were putting that project together, dude, that a soldier dies twice, right? Once on the battlefield, and then once again when
no one
nobody
says his name.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's good to hear those stories. Any last? I mean, I know your story takes a drastic turn from here. So any last, I mean, that was your last deployment. Any other final thoughts or like memories or?
I have something that stood out for me, and I'm not going to talk about the things that I did over there. I was involved in some very hairy kinetic stuff, and I want to talk about that. But the reality of war and how war intersects with human lives and tears families apart, like war was like very, very like adventurous and glamorous for me up till then. It's what every Ranger lusts for. It's what, God, I wanted so badly to go to war and to fight and to kill and like be a real Ranger. Only Rangers have been to war are real Rangers. That's the way I thought about it. And then, something happened over there that has stayed with me all these years. And it made me realize like how impactful war is on humans, not just like, you know, not just us in our John Wayne fantasy. We had flown in one night on this village on the border of Al Qaim, and if any of my friends are listening who were there, you guys remember the escarpment, that damn escarpment in Iraq, right on the Syrian border, and we got in a very big tick out there, and a bunch of things happened, but the night before we had flown in, and many of us, not all of us, many of the guys in the platoon were scattered among an escarpment. For those of you who don't know what an escarpment is, imagine a cliff side that stretches for a very, very, very long way, turning into a plateau. So you've got a plateau, cliffside, and then low ground, right? And this escarpment was really, really big, and it was partially surrounding a village in which the D-Boys and Rangers had gone down, and they were involved in like a big kinetic clearing the night before. So I was up in the escarpment providing overwatch for the backside of our guys. Our guys were down in the valley with the D-Boys killing the enemy. And then beyond the escarpment, and on the edge, beyond the objective and on the edges of the objective, there were Ranger blocking positions to prevent people from coming into or leaving the village. And in the course of the night, Adam Angersanio and Mike Hurst, and I believe it was Z Cleeps, they had ambushed a couple guys that were trying to sneak into the village. These guys were sneaking into the village. They all had weapons. They didn't see our guys, and our guys had killed them, right? So they had shot these dudes up, and those Iraqi guys had died honorably. They were fighters. They were killed so quickly, I'm sure they didn't feel anything. And it was part of like the course of war, right? Men fight in war and they die, and like there was, you know, it is what it is. But over the course of the night, the BPs had been called in, and the situation had changed. And I'm up in the escarpment with Luis Figueroa, and we're overwatching the backside of the village. The BP had collapsed, and now laying in the street on this dirt path, there's 3 bodies laying out in the road. And these bodies are cooking, and it's 108 degrees out. It's blindingly oven furnace hot, full summer high Iraqi desert. And I'm in the escarpment, and Louis and I are up there, and I got a 40 by spotting scope, and Louis got a scope on his rifle, and we're kind of just watching everything underneath of us. Excuse me. And we're not talking, we're just calling up reports if we see anything that's pertinent. And we're watching, and there's a couple kids out playing in the fields behind the village, and they're playing soccer. Well, they're kicking a ball around. As they're kicking the ball around, they're kind of migrating just through the normal course of play. They're migrating closer and closer and closer to where that road intersects the village. And those kids can't see it, but from our godlike position, we can look down and we can see the bodies. There's 3 bodies, and we can see the kids. And we're watching this, and I'm telling Louis, I'm like, yo, those kids are 100% gonna find those bodies. And we're watching them. And I have a Winchester 40 by spotting scope, so 40 times magnification. From my position, which is several hundred meters away, I'm looking at this as though it's theater right in front of me, right? Of course, these kids are kicking the soccer ball. They look like they're young kids, all under the ages of 9 for sure. They come up and they find the bodies. And the oldest one of them, who looks like he's a kid of about 10-ish, he stands over and he's looking very intently at the bodies. And he's looking at the bodies and he's looking at the bodies. And then he picks his head up and he starts booking into the town. Full energy running into the town, running so fast he's leaving the other kids behind him. And I tell Louis, I'm like, yo, I think we got a situation here, dude. Check. And so we're watching what's going on. Kid runs into a house. And now, mind you, I'm at least 300 meters away from this. Maybe 4, maybe 5. I don't know how far away, but I'm pretty damn far away. And from as far away as I am, I can hear a high-pitched scream come out of the house. And there's a couple men who come running across the street into the house. And we're watching this unfold. And at some point, a big woman, a woman in a black burqa, she looked like a big woman, like big childbearing hips, chubby, busty, like looks like a childbearing woman. Comes out of the house stumbling. She falls on the ground. These 2 guys kind of pick her up, and it looks like she's kind of fighting them off. And they're trying to bring her back in the house, and she's fighting them off. And finally, she gets free of them, and she runs with everything she has out to the intersection. And she finds the bodies, and she falls to her knees, and she's wailing, right? It's very clear that one of these guys was her kid. Very clear that one of these boys, one of these young men that was dead in the street was one of her kids. And they were dead. They were dead, and they died in such a way in which they were disfigured, right? And this woman is screaming and screaming and screaming, and she falls to her knees. And like, again, I'm watching this through a 40 by scope. And she's wailing over one of these bodies, and the men kind of pick her up, and she's got no energy left, and they basically sort of drag her all the way back into the house. And I tell Louis, I'm like, dude, this is bad. Something's going to happen. They're going to raise up. They're going to start busting. They're going to we got to call this up. So we call it up. And to the credit of the Iraqis that were in that village, one of the men leaves the house. And this takes a lot of courage for somebody to do this, right? Because this dude, had he done this a different way, he could have gotten killed. One of these men very bravely goes up to where he sees some American soldiers, and somehow, I don't know if he spoke English or if there was a Terp involved, but he basically said to these guys, he's like, hey, look, we're not fighters. We're just people who live in this village. This guy that was killed is the son of the woman who lives here. And according to our custom, we really need to get him in the ground before the next cycle of darkness. That's part of our religion. We're asking permission to bury this guy. Or start their burial ritual, whatever it is. And to the credit, the unit, the D-boy commander allowed him to do it. And we watched all this unfold. They came out and they put a covering over the dude's face. It was like a bright white, super bright white, perfectly white covering that they put over the guy's face and upper body. And I remember them taking the body and carrying it in the house, where I'm assuming they prepped it for burial. And I just watched all of this unfold. And then years later, after the war, I wondered, whatever became of that woman. You know what I mean? She's probably still alive today. You know what I mean? Yeah, what happened? Oh, my son, my son was killed in Iraq in 2005. The Americans came, the war was going on. He took up arms, and unfortunately, they killed him right up the street. It's crazy. She, not only is her son buried there, but she has to see the place where he was killed. And I wonder, she's very clearly sad, and like I wonder if she's maybe proud of him. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I will say to that young man's, you know, to his benefit, like he was killed soldiering. He wasn't sneaking around setting off a car bomb or whatever, but his home was being attacked by American soldiers, and he did what he thought was right. He took up arms, and unfortunately, he played the world's most dangerous game and was killed doing it. So I don't feel any animosity to the guy or anything like that. He just died soldiering in war.
War is very, I think war is very human. I think I've seen that kind of more. I mean, yes, I saw it during my time in deployments. I also saw it in a couple active shooter situations that there was mass casualty events that I was a part of. I think, I don't know, man. There's just so many different human aspects. And I think where I was going with that thought is, you know, in the last year, I think especially, we've seen a lot between the Russians and the Ukrainians. And I often think about, I mean, going down the route of why and who, that's not a conversation I really want to have. I don't really care about the politics, but I can't help but think about, like, the Ukrainians and the Russians speak the same language. It was like if we went to war with Canada, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, look, there's a million reasons why one, why the other, but I just can't help think you see these drone footages of, you know, the Ukrainians killing the Russians, and you like get to see the dude's last reaction, or them praying, or
I try to never watch that stuff. Of course, I've seen some of it, like other people. And you know, it's crazy because we'll get into it later, but I work in drone technology now for the Army. I work in armed drone technology right now for the Army, and I try to never watch that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't seek it out. It's kind of hard to avoid it, but I just, to go to your point and that story that you just told, like, man, it's so human, right? Like, it's you know, we, my kids play Call of Duty, and you know what I mean? The video game industry is really kind of taken, plus, you know, TV and movies really kind of taken the sting out, you know, glamorized and glorified war. And, you know, those of us that are warriors, man, we went looking for that.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older and my kids are older, and, you know, I've been through a lot personally, professionally, you know, I have kids that are, you know, I have one kid that's of fighting age, and you're just like, I don't know, man. Sometimes I wrestle with it. I don't wrestle with war. War's always going to be here. It's always been here. It's always going to be here.
Yeah.
But, you know, in my older years now, I can't help but think of the human toil. I mean, look at, you know, Israel and Gaza. Like, you know what I mean? I just can't help but think about, you know, take politics out of it. I just think of the human side of it, man.
I think war is just an extension of the human condition. And like, I think it's one of the only things that's like helped me get over kind of all this stuff that happened over there. Cause you're inevitably impacted by it. But like, for me personally, just me, and hopefully maybe some other dude will hear this. Like, you know, I struggled with like coming home and all that stuff, you know, just like a lot of people did. And I think now I feel like I've stepped into a river of time, and this way it goes all the way into the future. And this way it goes all the way into the far ancient past. You know, it goes past Passchendaele and Carthage and Scipio Africanus and the Phrygians and the, you know, all the way into the deepest past of like professional armed men, right? And I feel like all of those men up to me, like I feel somehow connected to them. I don't know if that's a trauma coping mechanism or if it's just something that I'm actually innately proud of, but I feel like I'm in the same river of time as every other like professional fighting man that's ever lived.
Yeah,
because it's about like shared suffering.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm not a pacifist. Like I've never been a pacifist. I don't enjoy death. I don't glorify death. War is necessary. There are evil people in this world. You and I have seen some of those people. And you know, sometimes evil needs to be dealt with, you know, especially if you're a religious person. Like we talked about the Bible, there's plenty of instances where people were killed in the Bible. So, but anyway, just, you know, I just had that thought. I don't know why that thought was lingering, but I think sometimes the human aspect of war is often glorified. But those of us that have been there and seen the things, and that's why I kind of ask the question, like, what is a memory, sight, sound, or smell? Because you brought it up, right? Like there are smells that
smell.
There's, you know, sounds.
The smell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that that woman screaming, that sound can reverberate through your soul.
There's a lot of people out there that follow channels like this and they follow pages like this because they're kind of addicted to war porn and they want to know about the kit, the gear, the tattoos, the muscles, all that shit. Like, you hear some woman screaming over her dead kid, it's going to change the way that you look at all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's really like, it's not to be glorified, but unfortunately it is part of the human condition. And, talking about the human condition is why we're here, right?
Yeah. And I just think people, I've had guys on the channel from, Special Forces, Rangers, Delta, there's some Air Force guys coming on. People don't realize the toll that training and like that lifestyle takes on your body, dude. Like, bone crushing falls and running with kit and like just really the human, you find a dude who spent 21 years in the military, especially in a tier 1, tier 2 unit, dude. Like,
they're wrecked.
Yeah, bro.
My S1 vertebrae is irreparably damaged. I got severe damage in my left knee, and I've already had 2 surgeries on my right shoulder and then 3 surgeries on my face from getting banged up over there. And like, it's kind of funny because like now that I'm competing in combat sports, like I compete in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, like we talk about mileage on people's bodies, and like when people find out I'm from a soft background, they're like, man, it's kind of a miracle that you're doing this, because like I talk about like, wow, man, jiu-jitsu and wrestling, that's hard on the body. They're like, no, bro, what you did was hard on the body. And thank God I'm still in pretty good shape. I'm pretty mobile, you know what I mean? But yeah.
Well, the only reason I bring that up is because I know as you came back from, that Iraq trip, I mean, you were banged up mentally, physically.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's I mean, you got RFS'd 2 weeks before penning E6 for a drug-related incident that you kind of don't remember.
I don't.
What happened? And for RFS, can you explain what that means?
It means released for standards. It's basically, let's not sugarcoat it, means getting kicked out of the regiment. You can be released for standards for a lot of things. Usually it's for negligent discharge of a weapon. And a lot of RFSing has to do with the political climate at the time and their needs of guys. But I got RFS'd for a lot of guys, shout outs to all my regiment bros who are listening. A lot of guys get RFS'd for stupid reasons, right? But I did not get RFS'd for a stupid reason. I got RFS'd for something that was very, very serious. It was stupid. But so on that Iraq trip, I severely injured my back in a fall and came back and was placed on rear detachment. I was on non-jump status. I was healing from a very, very significant spinal injury.
What happened?
We came in and threw rope. I was on the door looking at rope. We came into fast rope, right? The bird came in flared. We had a brownout. I chucked the rope. I was a sergeant at the time, senior team leader. Saw the rope on the ground. Couldn't make visual. Called up, no vis. And what they did was they lifted the bird back up. And then, so a lot of times in a brownout, when they feel safe enough, they'll lift the bird back up and then they'll come back down like that. And that big push of air will push a lot of the brownout stuff out.
Yeah, brownout is like in the desert when like a Black Hawk is coming down to kind of land. It picks up so much dirt and that like moon dust,
right?
That you can't see.
You can't see anything, right? So I, no vis, and I called. So they did a little elevator, which is like you take the bird up and then push the bird back down at a pretty good rate. And that big push of wind or whatever, it kind of tends to clear up the brownout, right? So they did the push, but when they did the push, they were higher up than the first float, the first hover. So I got on rope, and I want to say it was Dante Ross on the other rope, but another Ranger was on the rope. And as we started to rope, there was some gunfire on the ground, and the bird turned just about like 5 or 10 degrees like that to change the angle of attack on where they were getting shot from. And when it did, I was far enough down the rope, the centrifugal force pulled the rope like that, and I lost the rope. And I fell, and I landed almost in that like Marvel superhero pose. But when I landed, my weapon hit me in the leg, tore my quadricep, and I effed up my back. And then I had to be carried off the battlefield. And then I did 2 weeks coalescing at Al Taqaddum, which like was a big naval hospital out there. And I was getting work done on my spine and my back. So Iraq finishes up. I come home. I'm having severe back problems. And the battalion surgeon checks me out, does a bunch of x-rays, MRIs, finds out, oh, you've got a compressed disc in your back. You need some rehab time. The battalion's about to rip out again. You're on rear D status, which means you can't go to combat, you can't jump. You're still on the roster, but you're broke, right? So everyone rips out, and I'm back on rear D. And by this time, I was drinking heavily. I'd always been a partier, right? I'd always been a life of the party. I think one of the reasons I did so well in the political climate of regiment was that, like, I was a partier. I knew where the party was. I knew where the girls were. Outgoing attitude. I was a little bit older than other guys. If you wanted to party, I was the guy to link up with. Me and Ryan Mansfield and Peter A. If you wanted to party, we were the guys that we knew where the party was. So the battalion ripped out. They were going to be gone for a few months, and I was living off post, and I had already been a heavy drinker, and I was drinking very, very heavily at this point. Which tracks. Why wouldn't you be, right? Why wouldn't you be drinking heavily after having just come back after another hardcore kinetic incident where you're injured, like, you know? And also in soft units, there's a weird culture where when you're injured, it's not like in big league sports where, like, you know, if you're a baseball player and you're a pitcher and you hurt your elbow and you go on the injured list, people don't look at you like, what a piece of shit. What a bitch, right? They're just like, oh, Johnson is on the injured list. Hopefully his arm heals up, and when he comes back, he can be a good pitcher again. It's not like that in regiment. You're kind of somewhat spiritually outcast when you're broke, right? Which is ridiculous because every single guy gets broke at some point. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. At some point, you're going to get broken. The injury rate in SOF is something, I read somewhere, it's like 140%, right? So you're going to get hurt, and of those guys that all get hurt, 40% of them are going to get hurt again. There's a very high injury recidivism rate because we're doing stuff that's completely unnatural. So I'm hurt and broke. The battalion rips out. I'm on rear D. I'm drinking very, very heavily, kind of low-key effing around with stuff I shouldn't have been. And I don't remember this, but I had a big party at my house, a big rager party. A bunch of people came over the house, hammered drunk. And I must have done some coke, and the very, very next morning, I get piss tested, which is crazy because I probably didn't sleep at all that night. Piss tested, and with my metabolism being so high, and like, I used to carry very low body fat. I was probably 8% body fat, super good shape. Like if I hadn't been piss tested that morning, they probably wouldn't have got me, and like the trajectory of my life would have changed. But unfortunately, I got piss tested. I failed the piss test, and that was it. There's no, hey, we're sorry, man. Hey, unfortunately, Ash. Hey, unfortunately, Chris. It's like, no, you are gone right now.
But there was some stuff that led up to that too. Obviously we're not going to use names, but your platoon leadership.
I was struggling at home with what was going on in my personal life, and then I was having struggles with my immediate leadership. I made the terrible mistake, the unforgivable sin, and I've talked to a lot of guys. I have friends now that are senior leaders in regiment, and they feel like this situation was handled very poorly. Like, first off, like, I'm mixed race, right? Not a white guy. And on my own accord, I went and I took the DLI language aptitude test, and I scored something ridiculous on it. I scored, like, there's not just DLI, but there used to be at least an aptitude test you could take where you did a test and it gives you like a fake language to test on to see.
It's called the DLPT. Yeah.
Oh, is it really? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't know that.
The Defense Language, I think, proficiency test, I believe. And basically it tests your ability to learn a foreign language.
Well, I took that test sua sponte. And I maxed it out. I got some ridiculously high score on. So in my mind, I'm like, hey, look, I'm a Ranger NCO, a mixed race. I scored off the charts in DLPT. Thank you for telling me. I couldn't remember the name of that.
Or maybe it's the D Lab.
Yeah.
Maybe I think the DLPT is your proficiency test. It's called the D Lab. One of the two.
But it's got the fake
it's
language.
a fake language. It's
Yeah.
super weird.
Yeah. Well, I crushed that thing. I don't know why I did it, but I just took it and I scored off the charts on it. So I went to my platoon leadership and I was like, hey, I got this crazy idea. What would you think? Like, it kind of makes sense for me to go to group, right? Like, I'm coming up on my 3rd enlistment. I've got my tab, Ranger NCO. I think it'd probably be pretty much a walk-in for me to go to group. I'd crush SFAS. And not only that, but I have the language aptitude. I love language arts. I already speak really good Spanish. Like, my girlfriend at the time was a Mexican girl who spoke Spanish. I speak Spanglish in the house as it is. This is not much of a leap for me to like do this. And unfortunately, the person I brought it to was, I don't know why, but deeply, deeply, deeply offended by this in a personal way.
It's like your platoon leadership.
Yeah. And then really, really went in on me. And like, instead of saying like, hey, we don't like this idea, you should stay in regiment, it's like, hey, you're an effing traitor to your people. If you go over and do that, you're persona non grata. Like, how dare you even think of betraying the people you've been to war with? This is disgusting. Did you ever come to me with that idea again, right? It was bad. It was really like I got crushed for this for no reason. And that started a chain of events in my mind where I was like, like, I couldn't fathom why I was in trouble. I didn't even say I was going to go do it. I just said, hey, what do you think of me doing this? And got smashed for this, right? Smashed publicly in the DFAC, not even in like, and that was another thing. Like, it didn't happen in the platoon office. It didn't happen in the COF. It didn't happen in the common area. It happened in the DFAC in front of everybody. And the dude made a big scene about it, right? You're a piece of shit. What kind of traitorous, yellow-bellied, coward MFer like you want to go over to a group? Those dudes suck. How dare you? It was hard. It was bad. It was embarrassing. You know what I mean?
I'll never understand that small-minded concept with leaders who want to hold people back from furthering themselves. If you're a leader and you're listening to this, you know, don't be a piece of shit.
And this is a guy that put me in for an ARCOM V on Afghan 2. It got downgraded in ARCOM, but he put me in for an ARCOM V for an incident that happened where we were this close to each other when I did a thing that I got an ARCOM for, a combat ARCOM for, right? He knew I was a good guy. And I re-enlisted while we were in Iraq. And when I re-enlisted in Iraq, he was on the board of guys that wrote my re-enlistment, right? So this guy knew that I was about it. This guy knew that I was Ranger in my bones and my family. All I said to him was like, hey man, I took this crazy test and I scored off the charts on it. And also, like, group has a problem finding guys that aren't white. I mean, that's the truth, right? Makes a lot of sense. I'm like, I'd be a walk into group. I'd be exactly what group was looking for. This would be cool, man. I'll go over to group, like, extend my career in soft. No. And not only did he have a problem with it, but to reiterate, he embarrassed me publicly. And to me, that was so far against the code. Something snapped in me. Very, of course, against him. But now I started to see the politics and look at everything different, right? And that incident in that DFAC caused a big rift between me and this guy that never got fixed. It hasn't been fixed to this day. I saw him at the 50th anniversary, and I didn't say hi to him. If I saw him on the street, I wouldn't say hi to him. Why? So that happened, and then I'm recovering from being injured. Now I've got a serious spinal injury at this point. My S1 vertebrae was not fractured, but like my disc was destroyed, right? So I was on non-jump status. I wasn't able to jump out of airplanes. So I had a buddy that was in the training room over at HHC. My last name's McCoy. His last name's McDonald. MCD, MCC. So we had been in basic training together and stayed friends all these years. And we're still friends to this day. Shout out Marcus McDonald. Bro, I don't have to tell you, I love you, bro. Marcus McDonald was a very perfect soldier, had a long career in regiment. Everyone loves him. He was in SECO, and he ended up going over to HHC, and he was working, I want to say, in the mail room or some training room, something like that. And he comes up to me one day. He's like, hey, dude, I got a perfect opportunity for you. We need an NCO in the training room. It's 90 days. All you're going to do is like sort mail and do some little logistic stuff. Still be on the rolls. You don't have to jump, and it'll be perfect because you're banged up right now. You can come over and heal up and coalesce, and then it'll just be you and me. We'll be on our own PT schedule, and then like you can get with the battalion surgeon or the trainer and figure out what your rehab program is going to be. All you got to do is get your chain of command to sign off on it, and I'm the signature authority on it. So you just bring that piece of paperwork over, I sign it, boom, you're in the training room with me, right? And me and Marcus then were boys, and we're still boys to this day. And I'm like, this is a great opportunity. He's like, yeah, man, you'll be able to get healthy, right? Cool. So this time I get a little smart. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to go to platoon leadership. I'm going to go over to the battalion surgeon first and be like, hey, sir, what do you think of this idea? And the battalion surgeon thought it was a great idea. And the battalion surgeon gave me my x-rays, right? He's like, hey, you take these over and you let these guys know what's up. So I went over to my platoon leadership, and once again, he did not like that one bit. Flipped out on me. Told me I was shirking. I wanted to get off the line. Accused me of cowardice. All this bullshit, right? A guy that had just done 2 combat deployments with him, and a guy that you wrote up for an award for something that I did right in front of you versus a belligerent enemy of our country, right? I'm not going to go into it, but like the ARCOM I got wasn't for like a period of time. It was for me committing an act of violence against an enemy of our country, right? So he knew that I was about that action, and he freaked out again. And again, he publicly shamed me. He publicly shamed me, name calling, and accused me of being a coward. And that's when the rift happened. That's when I was just mentally checked out. That's when I was like, F you, F this whole place, dude. So the battalion rips out, and he says to me, I don't care what's going on with your back. I don't give a shit. I know you're being a coward. You are going on this effing deployment. We need every stinking body we can get over there. I'm like, all right, cool. And then the battalion surgeon comes over and he's like, hey, man, I don't care what you say about this dude. He cannot go on deployment because if he's involved in a vehicle accident, he's probably going to be paralyzed from the waist down. Like, this guy's got a much more serious injury than you think he does. And he did not like to hear that either. So when he found out that I pissed hot, I can't believe I'm about to say this in public. Jesus Christ. When he found out that I pissed hot, he tried to get me on charges of desertion and get me put in like federal prison. And that started a chain of events mentally and emotionally for me that really, really like changed the course of my life forever. And I'm not going to say his name, and the people who know me and who are closest to me know what happened, but like there's no subjectivity to this. This is like what happened. And if that guy was in the room right now, I'm sure maybe he'd have a different perspective on it after all these years. But these are the facts of what happened. You know what I mean? It started with the DLI thing. It got worse with the training room thing. And then when the battalion surgeon interceded to say that I couldn't go overseas, then it got really bad. Then when I pissed hot, look, I should have been RFS'd. I get it. Like, I'm not saying that I didn't F up. I did. I screwed up, right? I should have been RFS'd. But he made it personal and put in a chain of events that like could have gotten me thrown in prison, right? Until the rear D NCOIC, who was a former D-boy, refused to sign on this stuff. Because that guy, I can't remember his name. It started with an M. I really wish that guy did me a solid. He's like, no, I know who this dude is. I've seen this guy train. I've seen this guy on the range before. This guy's a good dude. He just effed up and he stepped on his dick. We're not going to get this guy thrown in prison. Why are we going to get this guy thrown in prison because he pissed? Yeah, getting RFS'd is worse enough. You know what I mean? And I remember when I pissed hot, and I remember when I had to go in his office and he had to sign something for me. I was sitting in there. God, I cannot remember this guy's name. He was a big, maybe somebody from 275 can remember this dude's name. He was a rear D NCOIC. He had been in the unit. He came back as an E8, and he came back because his daughter, I believe had brain cancer, and he was trying to get some time out of the unit so he could be around while his daughter coalesced. And his last name started with an M. He was a real big dude. He was a master sergeant. He was real friendly, had red hair. But after I pissed hot, I had to go and see the MPs. That was like a whole thing, you know, because like obviously I had illegal drugs in my system. So I was like, I don't know, illegal. I don't know what. But I went and saw the MPs, and they brought me back, and like I had to go into his office. And I remember sitting down there, and for the life of me, I wish I could remember this guy's name, but we'll just call him M, because I know his last name started with an M, Master Sergeant M. And he was like, hey man, you know what we have to do now, right? And I was like, yeah, Roger. And he goes, I started crying. You know, I started really, really crying, like started sobbing and then really, really started crying. And he goes, hey man, it's okay. Like everyone reaches their breaking point at some point. You know what I mean? And you just happen to get there, and this is your time. Like what you got to do now is like move forward with this. This isn't going to define your whole life. And he was very, very kind to me, which is weird for like a D-boy, you know what I mean? Because they're sort of like sociopathic, like murderous robots, but like
Still humans, man.
still human. And I think maybe he was feeling some kind of way because he had a daughter that was going through it, you know what I mean? And he was very kind to me, and I swore to myself I wouldn't F up for this guy. And of course I cocked it all up, and like, you know, I screwed up like leaving the military. I didn't ACAP correctly. I absconded post when I was ACAPing. Like it was a complete catastrophe.
So what happened when you left the regiment?
So there's like I'm probably going to get my terminology wrong. And for those of you who are listening, I'm sure you can correct me, but I believe it's called ACAPing.
Yeah.
It's like the last 4 days when you sign out a post.
Yeah, you do like they help you do your resume, job hunt, you know, all that.
Well,
stuff.
ACAP, right? Well, here's the thing. ACAP at the time was a 4-day process. And you go around and you get like 8 signatures a day. Get all these different little shops.
But were you getting kicked out of the military, or did you have to find a new unit?
No, I was getting chaptered out because it was a drug offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that when I was ACAPing, they assigned like a dude, like a little, they assigned some private to like escort me everywhere because I couldn't be trusted to go to the Waller Hall. They assigned this private to me, and I was a dick to him. I was like, yo, I don't need you escorting me. I don't even know you, bro. You know what I mean? You're some nobody, and you're gonna escort me around? Come on, bro. F out my face. Da, da, da. And I was a dick to him. So I remember I ACAP'd for 2 days, and then I just didn't show up anymore because I didn't know at the time. I was like, why do I need to ACAP? Why do these guys need my signature for? I'm done. I turned all my shit in. What do they need? A bunch of signatures for me for nothing that doesn't exist? I just left. And I didn't know that if you're getting out of the military, you have to finish ACAPing. I didn't know that if you don't finish ACAP, you're technically considered AWOL. I didn't know that. And I was so effed up in the head. I was so upset. I was so really full. Like the number one thing I was feeling was shame. You know what I mean? I took this thing that I had that I loved so much and I've been through so much, and I screwed it up. I totally effed it up. Totally screwed it up. And I was very emotional. I was just feeling overwhelmed with shame.
No coin, no plaque,
Nothing.
no
none.
thanks for your service.
No.
Just get out. How does that destroy someone, dude?
Well, like, I kind of want to reiterate, being somebody that came from no family, right? And coming from where I came from, the regiment was more than just my job. The regiment was my identity. Everything that I was, the dreams from childhood, everything that I worked through, all that stuff was ripped from me in a day. And not only was it ripped from me, but it was ripped from me, and I was told that I was like terrible and a bad person. And then on top of it, you got the fact that like, yes, I did the thing that got me kicked out, right? So it wasn't like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, of course, I did something terribly wrong. And it was all taken from me in a day, and I did not have the emotional maturity, and I did not have the familial connections, and I didn't have the social connections to deal with it. So I just indulged and hid in drug and alcohol abuse. because when you're high, you don't worry about feeling like you're a terrible, awful person and a failure to I felt like I was a failure to my Uncle Andy. I felt like I was a failure to my bloodline. I felt like I was a failure to like every fighting man in history. I felt like I would pat down on everybody. I was a complete, utter, and disgusting failure to anybody. You know what I mean? It was all gone in a second from a decision that I made. And I handled it terribly. I handled it poorly. I wouldn't even say poorly. What's a descriptor that's worse than poorly? I handled it terribly. All I wanted to do was make the chaos stop. And the only way I knew how to do that was by indulging in drugs and alcohol.
Hey everyone, we are excited to announce our new partnership with an awesome sponsor. When it's time to fuel my training, Alpha Country Training and Nutrition is my go-to. Founded by former Green Beret Spencer Lewis, Alpha Country crafts elite supplements to power warriors and athletes through the toughest challenges. They've got clean, effective supplements for endurance, strength, and recovery, plus apparel that actually performs. Whether you're grinding out early mornings or long miles, Alpha Country helps fuel that mission. One of their flagship products, Stay Ready Endurance, is a game changer, packed with cluster dextrin and mod carb, a premium, fast-acting, and slow-releasing carbohydrate source that keeps you fueled throughout your duration of your training. It's packed with blueberry and goji berry powders for natural antitoxin protection, has a full multivitamin blend inside, and also has electrolyte support through Himalayan pink salt and potassium. Clean, easy to digest, no bloating or heavy sugar crash that keeps you hydrated and energized during grueling workouts. Whether you're rucking in the heat, crushing high-intensity workouts, or training for Special Forces selection, this intro workout formula prevents fatigue and keeps you in the fight. Every ingredient is hand-selected for maximum performance because Spencer learned in the field, generic supplements just don't cut it. Alpha Country's entire line is built on transparency and quality, helping you recover faster and train harder. Ready to lead by example? Go to thealphacountry.com and use Vanguard20 for 20% off your first order. That's thealphacountry.com, code Vanguard20 for 20% off your first order. Power up and stay fueled with Alpha Country. Your body, your community, and your country deserve it. Seattle, bro. Living with your drug-addicted girlfriend. How quickly did you fall?
Well, it went very quickly from being my drug-addicted girlfriend to just the drug-addicted couple. And the fall was spectacular. I had completely lost any will or motivation to do anything other than get high. I just wanted to get high. And like, to my credit, in that period in darkness in which I was abusing drugs and alcohol, I was not stealing shit. I wasn't conning anybody. I wasn't grifting. I wasn't doing anything weird. I never ripped anyone off. I never stuck anyone up. I never like cut catalytic converters or any of the grimy stuff that you think like addicts are doing. All I wanted to do was get high and be left alone and like work on my little music and art projects, because that's all that like made all of this stop. And then eventually that just becomes all you do.
From a fanatically motivated ranger to, a functional drug user, what drugs were you using?
Stimulants of any form that I could get my hand on, whether it be coke or methamphetamine or amphetamine, anything that I could get my hand on. Adderall, I would, anything at all that I could put in my nose.
Yeah, describe that cycle, man, because you got to take stimulants to move, then you got to take depressants to sleep. Like, how are you functioning as a human?
Well,
I think a lot of people don't understand, especially if you haven't had that addiction or dealt with it. I mean, obviously we want to talk about the addiction, but we're also going to talk about how you broke it too. So,
well, I mean, I like a lot of people out there who are high energy, ADHD, crazy dudes. I have an extremely, extremely, extremely high tolerance for stimulants. And when I use stimulant drugs, they probably make me feel different than most people. Instead of getting, I feel very calm, very pleasant, locked in. Like I'm just, I'm just great to be around when I'm high. But you get in a cycle in which you're using stimulants to feel better. And then you need more and more and more to feel better. And then in order to come down, instead of facing those horrific horrific come downs that come from the dopamine reset. You take downers so you can sleep normal. And then what happens is you're in a cycle and you're starting to do very, very, very serious damage to your brain chemistry because you are never, ever sober, ever. There's never a period of time in which you can like just get restful sleep, think clearly, yes, of course I was dealing with PTS. I was dealing with PTS from the regiment. I was dealing with the TBI from getting blown up. Like I was dealing with a lot of things, but what I was doing was I was taking somebody who was already in a mentally fragile state and completely frying myself mentally.
You had no purpose anymore. And I think purpose is something that I've talked a lot about on this podcast, and I talk a lot about it in my own personal life. But what does a life without purpose feel like? Because that's kind of where you were.
I hate to say it, and it sounds tropey, but like it doesn't feel like it's worth living, I felt as though I had already fulfilled my destiny, so to speak. I don't really believe in destiny. About the time I did, I felt like I'd already fulfilled my destiny as a fighting man, right? I felt that I was born and my energy was cycled into this earth in order to fight and be a man in combat. And I had already accomplished that. And now the rest of everything that I was going through was pain. So, abusing myself mentally with drugs and alcohol was making it worse. I was getting in more and more of a toxic, crazy, chaotic, unbalanced mental state. You're already taking somebody who, due to PTS and TBI and all this stuff, is facing like a temporal mental illness. And then you're putting drugs on top of that, which is exacerbating mental illness. And now you've got a very, very sick, mentally ill, unhappy person who's violent and dangerous. Regiment guys and soft guys and unit guys, we spend our entire careers learning how to get better at fighting, whether that be fighting with a weapon, whether that be fighting in groups of people, whether that be fighting you in the bar. Our entire careers are built around the perfection of the pursuit of not soldiering, but fighting soldiering. And eventually on the backside of that, before the ravages of age and physiology come in, you've got somebody who's very fucking capable of great violence and is very dangerous. And I was getting in an unbelievable amount of fights on the street. I mean, like, I don't know, like scores of fights, serious fights with people on the street. Like,
just random people, or
what are you looking at? You know what I mean? And I was living in the hood, very, very confrontational. I was associating with people in my nonstop quest for drugs that were what I thought low life, shitty people, but I had to interact with them in order to get the things that I wanted. Hyper confrontational. Hyper aggressive, hyper confrontational, getting in tons of fights and just completely cooking myself on drugs and alcohol.
You had multiple suicide attempts following leaving the regiment. How close did you come?
Well, I think two of them were performative, to be honest with you. One was a cry for help and one was some theater. Right, sorry. The first time I discharged a Glock next to my head in the house while screaming at my girlfriend. And I have no idea why the cops weren't called. I think it's probably because I was living in a shitty neighborhood. People were used to hearing gunshots. But yeah, I fired a gun next to my head in the house while screaming at my girlfriend at the time, who also was, and unfortunately I've found out to this day still is, a drug addict. I don't know how much longer she has left for this earth. I sincerely hope that she somehow gets help, but she's been a drug addict for 20 years now. Discharged a pistol in the house. I feel like that was pretty performative. The second one, I tried to...
well, hold on, man.
Okay.
So I don't want to just skip over that casually. I mean, I know, mental health's a huge part of this channel. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, you discharge a gun, by your head. I remember you telling me the sound was so loud it like hurt your ears.
Mm-hmm.
What stopped you from killing yourself, man? Because there's a lot of people, and we're losing 40 veterans a day.
I was afraid. I was afraid.
If you could go back and talk to yourself in that moment, what would you tell yourself? Because there's so many dudes. I mean, I've struggled with it.
There'd be nothing I would tell myself. I would remove myself from that place physically, and I would have brought myself home or taken myself anywhere that was not connected with access to drugs. That's it. The access to drugs is what was frying my brain mentally. If I could have just gotten somewhere, and that's eventually how I got over it. Because I called my cousin begging for money. Scott, man, I swear to God, I can't make rent. Yo, please just send me some dough. I swear to God, I'll pay you back. My cousin knowing full well. Shout out Scott Updike. No, I love you, bro. He was like, I'm not going to give you money, but I will get you out of there and I'll bring you home. But there's nothing you can say to somebody who's that far gone mentally. There's no magic bullet that's going to say to them, like, wow, you're right. It took me getting locked up. It took me getting that miraculous thing with that cop down at Awajimaya in the UW. And it took my cousin moving me out of there because I was such a headstrong, aggressive person who was so deeply convinced that there was nothing was ever going to fix itself ever.
You had a bathtub incident. You want to talk about that?
I don't think we need to spend much time on it, but I made a very performative, embarrassingly bullshit cry for help in which I wrote a bunch of suicide notes and taped them up over the bathtub and then tried to cut myself and bleed to death in the bathtub. I took a bunch of Xanax before it happened, and I thought that I was going to like cut myself and bleed out blissfully, but like I cocked it up with the cutting myself and I cocked it up with the Xanax, and all I ended up doing was like falling asleep in the bathtub with the shower running on me till it went cold. I kind of came to and realized like how ridiculous and stupid it all looked. And then after that, the third one, I almost really blew it. And that's the one where I turned the corner. That's the one where I was like, all right, this is like not a game. Like,
What happened?
I was working for a high-rise window washing company, the kind where the guys rappel down buildings. And there's really no term for that job other than high-rise window washing, right? We use a bosun chair. Sometimes people call it bosun cleaning, but I was a high-rise window washer. And for those of you maybe have not seen them, but they're the guys where they set up rappel lines and they rappel down buildings and they clean the outside of the buildings, right? And that was a perfect job for me. I was, like rated rope handler. I have zero fear of heights. I'm very thalassophobic, but I have zero fear of heights. So I was doing that job and I was actually making halfway decent money. I did that for a couple months, and then I was involved in a work-related accident that wasn't my fault. A piece of rigging went. I fell and I fractured my ankle badly. So I was put on workman's comp, had a cast from my foot above my knee, and I was locked in my house with full pay and unlimited access to painkillers. So you can imagine how that went. And that went it took about 2 weeks until I decided to off myself. Because at first I was like, wow, I didn't even care that I broke my leg. I was like, wow, I don't have to work and I'm getting paid. Are you kidding me? Like, let's get high. That was my first thought. My first thought was like, I got a vacation where I can get high in my house and get paid for it. That's like how twisted my thinking was at the time. And I was in the house. And I just wanted it all be over. I was just at the point where I was just so embarrassed and so fed up with myself. What are you doing out here? Why are you still dude, why are you still pretending to be part of this shit? You already did it. You're done. The only thing left for you to do is check out and get the F up out of here. This is a waste. What are you doing now? Like, bro, like washing windows. Kidding me? You were meant for more than this. So my thought was like, hey, I'm going to end all this and then I'm going to cycle into the next thing, right? Or my energy is going to get cycled into the next warrior soldier, maybe 1,000 years in the future, maybe 5, maybe next week. I don't know. But I had some crazy thoughts. and my mind was completely addled with drugs, completely disassociated from reality. So I decided that I would take, I don't know how many it was, 20, 30. I want to say between 20 and 30 Percocets. I took 20 to 30 Percocets, and I was like, this is how I'm finally going to do it. Because I was too scared. I was too much of a bitch to put a gun next to my head. That was loud and was scary and was going to hurt. I had already cocked up the other thing. I didn't want to get strangled because I even back then I was kind of messing around with jiu-jitsu a little bit. No one likes being choked. I didn't want to like strangle myself. I was like, all right, pills are going to be the way, right? So I took 20 or 30 Percocet. I drank a little bit of booze and sat in my bathroom. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for blissfully all be over, because in my mind, you're going to get high and you're just going to, it's going to be joyride, man. It's going to be nice. It's going to feel great. But it did not feel great. I started to get really, really sick and I got a violent headache and started to get nauseous. And then what happened was I started to feel the opiates take over. And when that happened, it dawned on me that what I was doing was real, and I went into a super hyperdrive panic mode. Like, oh man, the literal clock is ticking on me, because once I lose consciousness, that's it. And I started freaking out, and I didn't know what to do, but I knew that I'd screwed up somehow. So I started trying to throw up. So I'm trying to throw up, and I'm trying to throw up, and nothing is happening. And now I'm really getting panicked, shoving my hands down my throat, drinking water, trying to throw up. Nothing is coming out but a little bit of blood and bile. And I'm like, oh my God, you've really cocked it up now. Now it's over. And I just remember screaming into the toilet, come on. And I'm starting to really, really get very high at this point. And then I remember out of nowhere, I just kind of like, and I regurgitated this. I don't know what it was, but it felt like almost like a ping pong ball, a little smaller than a ping pong ball, but it was like covered in that bile. It was like a pasty ball of something that came out of me. Puked it out in the toilet. Bunch of blood came out, and I just remember like sloppy crying, and you know. Sloppy crying, sloppy throwing up, all that kind of stuff. And I staggered into the bedroom, and I just remember going down on my knees and then blacking out. I must have blacked out for like 16, 18 hours, because it was dark when it happened. And then when I came to, it was dark, but it was the next cycle of darkness. I slept all the way, or passed out, whatever, through the entire circle of daylight. And I'm pretty fortunate, because at the time I had a pillow top mattress with a real thick comforter on it. And I think, this is my theory, if I had passed out face down on that thing or in a different compromised breathing position, I would certainly be dead. But I just happened to like pass out in like on my knees, leaned up against the bed, sort of like in an somewhat upright position. And I came to, and it kind of took me a long time to figure out like what had happened. And then after that, I called a close friend of mine who I grew up with, who was living in Colorado at the time. And I just came out and I told her the whole truth about everything that happened. And to her credit, she stopped what she was doing. She got a flight and she came out, and she's got a medical background. And she just came and she stayed with me for 4 or 5 days, and sort of like, I want to use the term nursed me back to health, but just basically provided immediate support to make sure I didn't do anything else to myself.
When you woke up that 16 to 18 hours later, dude, what were your first thoughts?
Confusion. And then, to be honest with you, I had a real lurking sense of like, confusion, embarrassment, shame. But underneath of all of that was a tiny little like glimmer, like, man, I'm glad I didn't. You know what I mean? Even in that moment, that's like, that was my absolute human rock bottom. Like I've hit rock bottom, then rebounded, then hit rock bottom a few times. That right there, that moment in that apartment in Lakewood in Seattle, that's my lowest human rock bottom. But yeah, that was my human rock bottom.
There's a quote that I've said in the past that maybe for my own life was, rock bottom is the foundation I built the rest of my life on.
I mean, I don't look at it as quotable as that. I just look at these little tiny turning points, right? Like that was a turning point one. The judge Shelton was a turning point. The cop was a turning point. My cousin bring me home was a turning point.
What would you say to somebody, man? Maybe they didn't get kicked out of the regiment or whatever, dude. Like they're at rock bottom of their life. They've lost their identity. They've hit this breaking point, this point that they think they can't come back from. And as somebody who came back, like, what do you tell that person, man?
All of this is a narrative that you're telling yourself. All of it. All of it. If you're deeply addicted to opiates and to the point where you're having withdrawals, you can go to rehab, right? If you're in financial crisis and you lost your house and the dog and everything like that, and you think you're going to be homeless, there's places you can go that can keep you from being homeless on the street. Like, there's an objective reality, and then there's your subjective reality. And what happens is when you're going through mental health crisis issues, the subjective reality becomes gigantic, and it completely impedes your ability to look at the objective reality of things. And I know that because I lived in that subjective reality for effing decades. For decades and decades and decades and decades, I was in the abyss. I was in Dante's ninth circle of hell. And what happens is you just start telling yourself over and over and over and over how horrible things are and awful things are. And you repeat some narrative, and the reality is that it's separated from the objective reality, which is that, like, you literally can get out of this. Because people have gotten through a lot worse than you've been through. No matter who you are, people have gotten through worse.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I mean, you kind of, you know, you recovered from the suicide attempts, but, you know, life still goes on. You know, you're at a house party, cops get called.
Yeah. So, I'm at a house party. I'm in North Seattle. I'm in a shitty neighborhood. All the windows are up in the party where loud music's playing. A lot of people in there drinking, loud as shit. Ghetto ass house party in a ghetto ass apartment complex, middle of the summer with all the windows open. There's a fight in the apartment. And people are screaming and yelling. Neighbors for sure called the cops. I'm pretty sure the neighbors called the cops before the fight even started, because the cops showed up within 30 seconds of the fight starting. Yo, you want to go? What's up? What's up? Blah, 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 blah. Same bullshit. We're scrapping it out. I'm squabbling with this dude, and I'm on top of a dude, and he's down on a couch. And I had the regiment thing. I had the MMA thing. I was training at Ivan Saliveri, stuff like that. I'm tooling this guy up, and a guy grabs me from behind real violently like this. And I turn around and I go to swing on the guy, and halfway through the swing, I realize it's SPD. I'm like, oh shit, I clipped the dude. And I'll say to this dude's partner's credit, his buddy immediately cracked me, like immediately, wham, starched me, right? I go down, these dudes are on top of me, and they tool me up pretty good, right? I'm complying, I'm cool. They cuff me up, drag me up out of there. Go to Puyallup City Jail. For anybody who's out in Seattle right now, I'm in Puyallup City Jail. And I'm locked up. And, of course, I can't make bail. I don't even know if there was bail assigned, but I had FTAs all over Seattle for car shit, right? So I'm locked up for battery on an LEO and obstruction. I think it was obstruction, but it was battery and something else. It was battery on it was felony battery on an LEO, and there was something else. I want to say it was obstruction. But as a former LEO, like I had an unconscionable number of FTAs for car shit all over Snohomish County, King County. Like I had a
For
million.
those of you, FTA is a failure to appear when you get a ticket, or when you if you get a ticket,
Yeah.
and you don't show up, you get a warrant, and they call it a failure to appear.
Right. And it was for like registration, driving suspended license. I don't even know how many I had, but a bunch of them, right? So I'm locked up in Puyallup City Jail, and I have FTAs all over the place, right? So they're like, bro, you're not getting out. You got to resolve these FTAs in all these different jurisdictions. So I went to Steilacoom Court. I'm in prison. I'm not prison. It's not prison. I'm in jail. But I'm in jail Oranges, and I go to Steilacoom Court, and I resolve that one. I go to Lakewood Court, and I resolve that one. And I want to say I went to King County, too. So I'm basically being shuttled around, resolving my FTAs while I'm in jumpsuit orange with PCJ on the back. And that actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because like when you're a judge and somebody's got a bench warrant for like driving license suspended, and they come in prison in jail Oranges, the judges were like, oh, you know what? You got bigger fish to fry, whatever. I'm not worried about it, right? So I got off on all those traffic FTAs, right? And I'm back in jail, and it's been about 45 days now. My car got evicted, lost the apartment. Or not, my car got evicted. I'm sorry. My car got impounded, got evicted. Everything's rock bottom. And I finally have to go to my trial date.
Yeah, you'd been in like the county jail for like 90 days, right?
It wasn't 90 days. It was like 48 or something like that.
Mm.
But it was a good little pull. I was in there a couple months.
You're sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
First time you've been sober in a while.
You know what? What's crazy? I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Shit. Till just now, all these years, I hadn't thought about that. I was sober. Weird. Huh. Sorry, I'm just having a little moment of clarity thinking about that. I never even thought about that. Yeah. Damn, that just like really hit me. I think it was 48 days that I did, but it was long enough to lose my car and lose my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And my drug addicted girlfriend, to her credit, she took my meager possessions and she put them in her sister's garage. I had very few material possessions, but she took them and put them in her sister's garage. So anyway, my court date finally comes up. I go to Puyallup City Court. I don't remember if it was circuit or district, but I get brought into court. The public defender goes before the judge, and he says, Your Honor, this is my client. Yada, yada, yada. He is a decorated U.S. Army Ranger who just got out like less than, I don't know, it wasn't even a year ago, right? This guy's served multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's been injured in combat, and he's been decorated for valor. We're asking the court for leniency in this case. It tells him the circumstances of the case. And the cops who arrested me weren't there either. And the judge is listening to this, and his name is Henry Shelton, Judge Henry Shelton. And I remember sitting in jail and guys talking about, oh man, you got Shelton. He's a hard ass. You're cooked, bud. You're going back to, you're going to do prison time, right? What are cons now? They don't know shit, right? And Shelton's listening to this, and he's like, son, come up here. And he turns the mic off. He comes up and he leans over and he's like, hey, what are you doing? You know, he had his hand his hand over the mic. What are you doing? Right? And he said, what are you doing? And I just looked up at him and I was stunned. I was like, I don't even know anymore. I was just honest. I'm like, man, it's making me emotional. Looked at him, I was like, honestly, I don't even know anymore. I don't even know. And he's like, all right, go back. What I didn't know that the public defender later told me is that Shelton had been a draftee in Vietnam who had been wounded in Vietnam. What are the chances of that, right?
My judge was the guy. My judge was a soldier at one point in his life who had been through war and been wounded in Vietnam. Went back. He's like, all right, I've come to a conclusion in this case. First off, I'm gonna suspend your time served, right? I'm gonna suspend your sentence, credit your time served. You've already served in Puyallup City Jail. And he goes, I'm gonna have you plead guilty. I'm gonna drop the charges, but I am gonna have you plead guilty to disturbing the peace, 3rd degree, right? And I didn't know this. And he gave an example. He's like, look, you can get I'm not disturbing the peace. I'm sorry, disorderly conduct. He's like, you're going to plead guilty to disorderly conduct 3rd degree. And that's something that you can get disorderly conduct 3rd degree for like peeing in public or having your windows tinted too dark or playing music too loud at your barbecue, right? It's like the most minor crime that you can really like cop to, right? So I'm going to assess you guilty of disorderly conduct 3rd degree. And the reason that I'm doing this is because, oh my God. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't believe that this young man should be precluded from owning a firearm for the rest of his life, given his service to this country. So that's why I'm going to assess him this minor misdemeanor. And I'm going to assess you a fine of $750. And I asked the judge, I was like, Your Honor, what happens if I don't pay the fine? Do I have to go back to jail? He goes, no, don't worry about it. It goes to collections. And in my mind, I was like, y'all know damn well I'm never paying that fine. My credit doesn't even exist anyway. Like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm fine. So I got extremely lucky and I missed a heat-seeking missile with that one because of this judge who just like, you know, he knew that I was a decorated vet and he felt a lot of sympathy for me. And like, look, man, this guy's an Army Ranger. He's served his country admirably. And guess what? He gets in a fight in a house party, right? I'm not going to ruin this dude's life forever over something that like in the long run, no one was stabbed. There was no like serious grievous bodily injury. It's a couple dudes fighting at a party, right? So I got out of that one, and I was very, very lucky that Judge Shelton was my judge because I think if it had been another judge, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, so you get out of jail, you got no car,
Nope.
You got nowhere to live.
Nope.
How long does it take you before you get caught? You know, you basically a pop for trying to steal food so you can just like live.
Yeah, so I was couch surfing here and there, staying where I could stay. Had a backpack of shit with me. And for those of you who've lived in Seattle, there used to be, and I believe it's still there was a huge sort of bougie luxury Japanese grocery store called Owajimaya in the International District. It was really nice. Owajimaya was like half retail, half grocery store that specialized in Japanese food. So me being a street dude, having practiced skullduggery my entire life, being very bold, I was going into Owajimaya and I was stealing food. I wasn't stealing product. I was stealing food. I didn't know where else. I didn't have any money. And I was going into Owajimaya and I was stealing food from Owajimaya almost every day. I had a little system going on and I would go in there and I would steal like 2 sub sandwiches, 2 banh mi, some sushi, and like a drink and walk out of there. And this system was working pretty well. One day I go into Owajimaya, I'm walking out of there. I got my bag. It's got like 2 sandwiches and a mango juice in it. This dude's like, hey, hold up. LP, loss prevention guy. I'm like, man, I ain't stopping for no LP. And the dude kind of aggressively chases me, and I take off, and another guy comes out, and they body me up, and I smoke one of these dudes, right? Crack this effing dude. And his buddy grabs me up, and we tussle and shit. I'm finally like, fine, I'm done. Whatever. And they are, of course, knowingly very upset. They grab me, bring me in the back.
and they are ready to press all kind of charges possible on me, not only for stealing the food, but for punching out one of the LPs, right? So I'm in the back, and you've been in LEO. Have you ever been called to like a shoplifting thing where you had to go to a store and like meet the person in the back with the LP?
Tons of times.
Okay, all right. Okay. So I'm sitting in there. I'm sitting in their little room, and they're like waiting. They got my bag. I'm sitting there. I'm being very compliant, and this cop shows up, and I wish to God I could find this guy. This would have been about 2006, 2007, I think maybe 2000. I honestly don't know when this would have been. Maybe it was 2008, 2009. I don't know. The timeline isn't important. This cop comes in, and this cop looked like friggin' Superman. He looked like Clark Kent. He had the thick hair, the little whirl in the front. He's chewing gum, and he's got the cop leather bomber jacket on. You know what I'm talking about? Super, like, ridiculously handsome, like Hollywood-looking young cool cop. He's got like the tack pants on and the boots and the bomber jacket, right? And you can hear the leather jacket creaking and everything. He's like chewing his gum. They're like, and the LP guys were basically like, "This is what happened." Like, haha, let's see what's in the bag. I'm sure he was stealing all kind of shit. And they open the bag, and there's like a sub sandwich and a mango juice in there. And they're kind of like, and the cop is like, "You really called me here for this?" And they're like, "Yeah, but he punched out one of our guys, and like, we were trying to stop him and blah, blah, blah." He's like, "All right, whatever. I got this." He's like, "Bro, you're coming with me." And the weird thing is that I wasn't cuffed. And he takes me to his cruiser, and it's full dark by now, because when the incident happened, it was daytime. But like by the time I got to his cruiser, it was dark. So I was with those LP guys for quite a while. And I get in the back of the cruiser, and I'm sitting there. And again, I'm starting to get like emotional. And he turns around. He's in the front seat. He turns around and he's like, "Hey, were you a Ranger?" And I was like, "Yeah, how did you know that?" And he's like, I could just, now it's Seattle, so the regiment is there, right? So it's most people will never come across a Ranger unless you live near Columbus or unless you live near Hunter or JBLM, right? But this guy, he must have known. Maybe he was ex-military. Maybe he was an ex-Ranger. I don't know. But he turned around. He's like, "Were you a Ranger?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "What the fuck is a Ranger doing stealing food?" And I was like, I needed to eat. I don't have any money. I'm dead broke. He goes, "You can go to food bank, right?" And I'm like, what's food bank?" He's like, "You don't know what food bank is?" And I was like, I don't know. He's like, "Man, it's a place you can go and you just sign your name and they give you free food. It's like a community thing. You don't know about this?" And I was like, "I don't know anything about this." He's like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "We got a Ranger and like you're stealing food because you don't know about food bank?" And I just started to break down. I was like, "Oh my God, here I go. I've like screwed it up again, right? I've blown it again. I just got my magic ticket not too long ago with Shelton, and now here I'm blowing it again, right?" He's like, "Man, where do you live?" And I started to tell him. He's like, "I don't want to know your address. I want to know where you live." And at the time, I was living in Jackson Heights, which is a real bad area, right? He's like, "All right, man." We drive, we go up the street, and we stop in the middle of Jackson Heights. He goes, "I'm going to let you out here, man." He's like, "I'm pretty sure you can get home safe on your own, right?" And he turns around to me, and he said it so earnestly, and he said it so intently that it makes me feel as though maybe he was a guy that went through this. He's like, "Look, man, today is the day that you got to stop. Man," it's like, make me upset. He goes, "You've got to stop. You've got to do better now. You have to do better now." And I don't know what possessed him to say that. I don't know what his background was, but he said it was he said it so seriously. He's like, "You got to do better. You can't, today's the day. You have to do better now." And he just let me out, and he was like, "I know you'll be able to get home fine. You're a Ranger. You'll be fine." And he just drove off. And I never saw him again.
And like looking back on that at the time, I was like, I missed a dodged another bullet. But looking back on it, like that's unbelievable that happened, right? Because now I guess my assumption would be now they have body cams and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't even know how it works. Like you were a cop, you could tell me better than this. Like how wouldn't he have had to tell his superiors like, hey, I got one I'm transporting? Like how was that even possible that he just let me out of his car?
Yeah, man, but there's a lot of, we call it the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. So the letter of the law was you shoplifted, right? But the spirit of that law was intended to, prevent shoplifting. And look, man, it takes up a lot of court time. There's a lot of things when you get trudged into the system and, you were trying to survive. Like, I think that's something that's missed again in this story, right? Cops are human, dude. Like, bro, I let a lot of people go. And I have a lot of friends who've let a lot of people go.
So
man.
you've done things like that before?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
Actually, I was a street cop for a long time before I did other stuff in my life.
So it's not unheard of for cops letting people go when they think like, all right, this guy's got a valid reason or whatever.
Absolutely, bro.
Huh, I didn't know that. Because I've thought about that too. And like, I've thought about the mechanics of that. Like, how did he just let some dude go?
Well, I mean, look, dude, as time has progressed, it gets harder and harder, bro. Like,
All right.
10, 20, 30 years ago, dude, you know what I mean? You could get out of tickets. You can do, we had a lot, I think cops back then had a lot more latitude. And look, man, there's still good cops that do good stuff, all kinds of, but it is harder. Now there are body cameras. Now everything's an incident ticket. Now everything is like cops have body cameras and they're not even allowed to check their own body cameras. The supervisor has to log in and do it.
Right.
It's gotten harder and harder, man. And I'm sure there's still stuff that happens to this day. There's, again, cops are human, bro. Like cops are, and law enforcement's a tough job, bro. They're probably one of the most hated profession on the planet.
They got to be the most hated profession on the planet.
I
period.
mean,
that or like Repo Man.
Nobody likes the cops. And then when they do need the cops, they can't get there quick enough. They're, bro, it's the most negative profession on the planet, but they are the last line of defense before anarchy. So that's a whole nother conversation. But that guy let you go that day, and what did that do for you, man? Do you think that was your final wake-up call?
I think for sure that was finally the one where it really started to hit me like, oh, all right. Because I had enough smarts to realize like I'm never getting there's no way I'm getting a third time's the charm. Because I inherently wasn't a criminal-minded person. You know what I mean? Or let's say I was criminal-minded, but I wasn't a criminal. You know what I mean? And I had enough wherewithal to realize that I wasn't gonna catch another break. And then very shortly after that is when the Bering Sea thing happened, and that's what really kicked everything in an upward trajectory.
So you started off doing day labor at Pacific Fishermen's Incorporated, doing the lowest grunt work possible. What was that like?
I walked into a day labor office looking for any kind of job, and they sent me over to this place called PFI, Pacific Fishermen's International, and I was doing what's called scaling, which might be the most low grunt work that exists on Earth. It's when you get on a Tyvek suit and a rebreather, and you get a pneumatic air hammer, and you're just air hammering old paint chips off the undersides of boats. And I was on a crew with all Spanish-speaking guys. And again, hearkening back to the fact I spoke very good Spanish at the time. It's very perishable. I don't speak Spanish the way that I used to. But at the time, I spoke really, really good gringo Spanish. So the guys on the boats were in dry dock, but they still lived on the boats, right? And the way they got off of the boats was there was scaffolding built up next to the boat. So when they wanted to get on, their house was on the boat. When they wanted to get on and off, they climbed up and down the scaffolding. But they had to live there and maintain the maintenance of the boat while it was in dry dock. And because I spoke such good Spanish, those guys would talk to me as kind of a go-between between the crew. And it was working out really, really well. Like I was put there on sort of like a long-term housework TDY, and I was there for about 3-4 weeks. So yeah, I'm working on the boat for about 3-4 weeks, and things are going swimmingly well, right? Bronco, the boat engineer, was there, and the Captain Ron Lloyd was there, and every day they're watching all these like Latin, Central America day laborers, and then weirdly there's this big, tall, tatted up, jacked Army Ranger Asian dude who's speaking very good Spanish and working like a maniac, right? Like I had and still have a maniacal work ethic. I have a very unusually high work ethic. I don't even know if my work ethic is unusually high. I just think that's how guys from the regiment are programmed. You say, hey, go do this thing. Someone from our world is going to chase down that thing and do it to the best of their ability. So I'm working on the boat. And one day, Bronco comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, the captain wants to talk to you. And all right, cool. They pull me up to the bridge. Like I'm in there with the captain and Bronco. And they're like, hey, look, man, we're getting ready to rip out to Alaska. We love your work ethic. And we just think that you'd probably be a good fit for the crew. And what had happened was the number 3 man had been in a terrible motorcycle accident and like spiral fractured his leg really badly. And he couldn't go up with him to Alaska. And they're like, what we're going to do is we're going to go up for a short pull where we're tending salmon. It's pretty easy. All you got to do is throw a lot of rope. We know you can handle line, right? You got to throw a lot of rope, work a crane, gaff some fish, work about 10 hours a day. The weather should be pretty decent. It'll be in the 70s up there. And then we think it'd be a good opportunity for you. Everyone here likes you. And we love your work ethic. How would you like to come up to Alaska and work with us for $150 a day, tax-free, for about 45 days? Yes. A million times yes. Matter of fact, we can go right now. You know what I mean? We'll get 10 minutes. I'll be ready. All right, calm down. We're going to leave here in about 3 days. Just come up here, be ready, be on the boat. We're going to go up. We'll take care of all the paperwork. You got to sign some shit, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, jumped on it. Take the boat up north. We're in Igaguk Bay, tending salmon, and I'm having the time of my life. It's great. The boat is dual anchored in a small bay. The salmon boats are out picking up catch. They're coming in, and we're using a crane and picking up their salmon catch and putting it on our boat. And we're operating a little sundry store full of like supplies, and we're supplying these little salmon boats. And things are going swimmingly great. Again, I had like an insane work ethic. Like you need anything to do, like, and I was very, very vested in these guys. And Captain Ron had a very warm, fatherly sort of vibe to him. And I was his dog. I was his dog. If Captain Ron had told me, hey, go put your head through that window, I would have immediately done it. And it was cool. I was like seeing things I wasn't used to, and I was being exposed to a new place. I was in the wilds of Alaska. And I remember one day they were very gently hazing me. Like they weren't really hazing me because they knew that I was probably not the kind of guy to be hazed. And I was already from that world. But Bronco was messing with me one day. He's like, hey, man, I need to climb the mast and change the lights on the mast. And the commercial fishing boat has a mast on it that's a good 50, 60 foot high. And it's got a little peg ladder on it. And it's got 2 arms, the red and a light, with a red and a green light on them. You take the cap off and change the light on the inside. And he handed me a bulb. He's like, go up there and change that light. And before the T was even out in the word light, I was racing up the ladder, right? And Bronco thought that he was just going to tease me, and I was going to be like, oh, I can't go up there. But I just flew up this ladder, flew out on the yard arm and changing the light. So I'm out on the arm, and I'm looking down, and it's probably about a 50-foot mast, and then the boat itself is another 15 to 20 foot off the water. Maybe it wasn't 50 foot. Altogether, let's say it's probably about a 60-foot drop into the water. And I'm up on the arm, and Bronco's feeling like, oh, man, I didn't really want him to go up there and do that. But I'm on the arm, and I'm yelling out. I'm like, hey, Ron. Yo, Ron. He's like, come down from up there. I was like, nah, man, I'll just jump into the bay. Watch this. He goes, no, stop. And I was like, it's all right. I'm going to do it. Watch. And he goes, get down here. He freaks out. He's, get the F down here now. That's an order from your captain. I'm like, geez, all right, fine. So I climb down the mast, and Bronco looks white. I come over with the old bulb. I'm like, hey, sorry, Captain Ron. I was just messing with you, man. You know, you don't have to get mad at me. I'll come down. He's like, no. You don't understand. He's like, the reason I freaked out on you is because I knew for sure you were going to do that. I was like, all right, so big deal. I'll just jump in the water. He's like, no, come here. And he shows me the water. He's like, you see that bay? He's like, there's a 22 knot current in the water right now. 22 knots. That's like 28 miles an hour. He's like, if you went into that water, you would be dead. He's like, the reason I told you to come down is because I knew you would do it. You're just not aware of like what it's like out there. He's like, if you went in that water, even if we fired up the skiff, there would be no way to recover you before you died. And he's like, it's really serious up here, man. It's serious up here, and I need you to be locked in. We need you here. And that kind of like woke me up like, oh shit, this is like, I'm in the big leagues. This is not like a joke. He's like, this isn't playtime, man. Like, you can get really hurt doing this stuff. So after that, I was snapped in. Then the end of Salmon comes up, and they come up to me and they're like, hey, the captain wants to talk to you again. Shit, what did I do this time? So they have another meeting with me, Captain Ron and Mark Bronco. And they're like, look, we want you to know something, man. When you came up here, this wasn't really just to get you to run salmon. Like, there's a million guys we could get running salmon. And to be honest with you, we probably could have ran salmon without you. What this was is this was like your tryout for the big leagues. We wanted to see how you got along and how you conducted yourself on the boat. Everyone here loves the way you work. We love your work ethic. We want to know, how would you feel about coming up and crabbing with us in the wintertime? Like, the real deal. And of course I said yes. And they're like, all right, cool. We'll go back to Caldestet Fisheries. We'll make the arrangements. And a month later, I was on plane up to Alaska, and I was in the big leagues on the Bering Sea crabbing.
King crab and Opelio crab in the North Bering Sea. How did the salmon season prepare you?
Not at all. Physically being on the boat is one thing, but I want the listeners out here to understand something. Like, even for those of us who are listening who come from a soft background or a military background, like, yeah, we think we're badasses. We're cool, right? You know, we've done a couple little things. We've like got paperwork that says we're badass. Some of us have hats that say we're badass. But the work that these guys are doing up there is on a completely different level. It's not like getting shot at. It's like, it's really kind of hard to put into words how goddamn dangerous and how difficult the job is that those guys are doing up there. They've changed the rules significantly since I was up there because so many guys were getting killed. You're talking 20 hours on, 4 hours off for 5-6 days in a row, where you're doing the hardest physical labor you can imagine, nonstop, breakneck speed on a soaking wet deck, 50-mile-an-hour winds. The boat is up and down, plunging in 20-foot waves and troughs, and there is steel machinery flying around you all the time. And you're working on a deck that's probably the size of this podcast room. And it's ridiculous. My captain had been in a rogue wave incident that killed one of his partners while he was in the bridge. The number 3 man had been in an overboard incident where he was in the water for 45 seconds before they shiv recovered him, and he spent a month in the hospital. And Bronco had broken his femur by getting hit by a piece of swinging steel. I almost got killed a week into it, and I was so new and I was so oblivious that I didn't even know it. That job was, I don't know if it still is, it was ridiculously, unbelievably dangerous and crazy. And I was good at it because I had a maniacal work ethic. My whole mindset was like, I am just not ever going to let these dudes see me tired. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how tired I am. I'm never going to let them see me falter. I'm never going to let them see me busted out, complain, cry, because deep down inside, I'm not a bitch. And like, my mentality was like, I kind of started that movement back to like who I was. I'm like, yo, I'm an Army Ranger. This dude is like a fisherman. Like, What does that say to the regiment and my guys if I can't stay up and outwork some fisherman dude? So I will die before that guy sees me tired. And that's the way I approached it. And I had a lot of wild adventures up there. Like I did it for 2 years. And by the end of that time, I was just completely mentally fried and burned out.
You were around them long enough to see them do physical feats that impressed you as an Army Ranger. What are some of those examples?
Well, the difference is when I was around CAG, I saw them do individual acts of bravery that blew me away. But these guys, watching them grind day after day after day after day after day after day, and in my mind, I mean, when I was up there, I was still young, I was jacked, I was in shape, I was diced, Army Ranger, work ethic, boom, 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 and it whipped my ass. And then it dawned on me, that guy's been doing this for 20 years straight. 20 years straight, he's done this. Oh, and along the way, he fractured his femur. His captain was killed in an, his 3-man was almost died in an overboard. And these dudes are just yanking line and pulling shivs and throwing bags and landing pots. And like, it kind of blew me away that someone can sustain that level of wattage for decades. How is that even possible? Those dudes are built different. I mean, I don't know. Like I was one of those dudes. I think I'm built somewhat different, but I just don't know how anyone does that for 20 years and doesn't die more than anything.
What do you think's different about like the wiring of those people?
Well, the simple answer is that they're outcasts and misfits. These are dudes that are working at the edge of the earth in a job that if they want to pays cash. I don't know how it is now, but back then, if you wanted to get paid cash, you could get paid at the end of your tour in a brick of cash if you wanted to. I got paid in check, but you're talking about dudes that are voluntarily doing a job in which the chances they're going to die are extremely high in an area where there's no hope for to be recovered if something happens to you. And they're working insane hours in insane conditions for MF and cash, baby. And what a lot of guys would do is they would work through the crabbing season and then go to Mexico and live in Mexico on their money. Because like, you know, the conversion rate of dough, you live down, like you make 80K up in America. What does 80K get for you when you're living in rural Mexico? It's like living like a king. It's a world of like outlaws and misfits, and guys have come to the end of the line. And like, I think it's kind of one of the last frontiers. Dutch Harbor is probably what I think it's probably akin to like, what were the gold prospectors like in 1849 in Deadwood, right? Kind of the same type of person.
Yeah. I don't know how many seasons there were of The Deadliest Catch. Were you on any of those, or did you know any of those folks?
I've never watched the show. I think I've watched one episode. I would have been on what is seasons 2 and 3. And I've had dinner with Sig Hansen where I kept my mouth shut because Sig Hansen and my captain were buddies from day one. And there's not a hardcore chain of command, but there's an etiquette there. Like if you're a horn, you don't interface with the captain. Certainly you don't interface with captains of another ship. So I've had dinner with Sig where I just kind of quietly sat there and kept my mouth shut. But my one claim to fame is if anyone watches the show, there used to be a ship up there. I believe it was called the Time Bandit that was ran by the Hillstrand brothers. And Jonathan Hillstrand was known for being like a wild party animal. Of course, me. Wild party animal. I've thrown up in the back of Jonathan Hillstrand's old Chevy, so that's kind of after drinking at the elbow rim. So that's my claim to fame.
Fighting dudes on the boats.
Yeah.
Getting hit by rogue waves.
Yeah.
Seeing sea lions and whales.
Mm-hmm.
What's some of your like memorable stories, man? Like, I remember when we podcast prepped, like we didn't spend tons of time, but you were like, "Man, I have some stories."
So the fighting in the rogue wave is one story. There was a guy on that boat. He would have been what's known as the 3-man. And his name was Dave. And Dave was very handsome, very physically capable. He came from like surfer California stock. He also had that growly voice, but he kind of like talked like a surf bomb. hey, dude, we're going to go out there and we're going to hit some waves. Like, he was just totally like Cali surf bum, right? But he was also an arrogant, loudmouth prick, and me and this dude clashed from day one. From day one, me and this dude clashed because his whole thing was that he always had something to say. He always had a little cutty comment. He just always had a little shitheel comment. Most of the guys there were in a mentorship role, but Dave was there. His whole job was to heckle you and tease you. Sometimes it was okay, but like his job, he fancied that his job was to heckle and tease you. And I'm like, bro, you're a effing joke. You have no concept of what world I've come from. Heckling, teasing, like this, you're a punk to me. And like, if it weren't for this boat, I'd probably just smash the hell out of you, right? So I put up with this dude's heckling and teasing, and I used to give it back to him. And he would say stuff to me like that would be at level 3, and I would return it on level 18. And it got bad. And like, to his credit, he's a grown-ass man too. He wasn't a punk. And it just started going round and round and round and round to the point where we were arguing nonstop, even when we're on the deck pulling line. And it was exhausting to us, and it had to have been exhausting to the whole crew. Big time personality clash. One day, we're in the breezeway, and there's the deck that you work on and the interior of the ship, and there's about a 8 to 10 foot hallway that's about as wide as a man can spread his arms, and it's called the breezeway, and it's partially sheltered from the elements. There's 2 doors on either end, and it's where you take off all your wet gear and you change into your dry gear to go into the boat, right? It's like a mud room. It's basically the equivalent of the porch of the boat. So one day we're in the breezeway, and Dave said something to me. I don't even remember what it was. And I said something back to him, and it really got out of control. And he got in my face, and I grabbed him and I yammed him over the table. And to Dave's credit, Dave was no punk. I'll give him that. Dave was no punk. Dave cracked me, and I cracked him back. And then everyone separated us. I'm like, rah, 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 rah. We're really getting after it. And Captain Ron had to come down and separate. He's like, hey, it stops here. We got to run the boat. Like the captain is literally, not figuratively, he's literally the legal authority on the boat. You know what I mean? The captain, if he wanted to execute us, he could have, right? The captains can marry people. They can have people thrown in prison. Like the captain's word is God on the boat, right? Captain Ron came down and really gave it to us. He's like, you two are going to get along. I don't care what happens, blah, blah, blah. So we're out on the deck, and we're still chirping at each other. Yeah, I wish you would. Yeah, do something about it, you punk, blah, blah, blah. What's going on? Back and forth all day long, right? And it's daytime. Dave and I are getting after it. And it's the big drama on the boat, right? Because Dave had been on the boat 10 years. And here I come. I'm the new greenhorn, but I'm a badass. They love me. And Captain Ron is very proud to be an American. And we got this vet on the boat, right? Like, so it was kind of split. Like Captain Ron and Bronco loved me. And Dave and then the cook, they hated me, right? I can't even remember the cook's name. He was a vaquero. He was like a Mexican dude that owned a horse ranch. And I cannot remember the dude's name, but he didn't like me either. So the boat was split, right? But as it turns out, the captain loved me, and the captain's word was God, right? So this has been going on and on forever, and we're chirping at each other, and we finally pull a day shift, we pull a night shift, then we pull a day shift, and we are exhausted, busted out, burned out, cooked. And the weather breaks, and the weather's really nice. And Ron says, all right, we're going to put the boat down, and it's really super calm, flat seas. We're in maybe a 2 foot swell, which is very unusual, right? Calm, pleasant weather. The seagulls are flapping around. Sun's coming up. Golden hour in the morning. And he's like, all right, I'm putting the boat down. Everybody's going to get a little rest. So I come off the deck, and I'm not in the breezeway. I'm sitting under the back covered area with the porch by the shiv. The shiv is like a crane, and it's got a bench there. And I sit down, flop. I flop down on the bench, and Dave flops down on the bench next to me. And at the time, I smoked real heavily, and not real heavily, but I smoked heavily when I was on the boat. And all fishermen smoke, right? It's just, what else are you gonna do? All fishermen smoke, and they consume massive amounts of caffeine. And on other boats, they consume massive amounts of stimulants too. That's like a little dirty secret. If you watch the Deadliest Catch, all those dudes are high. But I flop down on a seat, and Dave flops down on a seat, and we're so tired we can't even argue with each other anymore, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm about to smoke a cigarette, and I just hear, and it's nice, it's really nice out. You can see the whole sea, the sun's coming up, it's beautiful. You hear the seagulls chirping. We're probably 50 miles out, and I just hear wah, wah, wah. It's the emergency alarm going off, right? I'm like, what the heck? And I turn around like this, and the second I turn around, I just see this gigantic mountain of bright jade green. It looked bright jade green. It was backlit by the sun. Mountain of water come in, and I had a split second to go, and it just crashed into me. Smash! And I go into the washing machine, literally. I'm just being flown around in this thing. Sorry. I'm being flown around in this thing, and I just do what I was trained to do, which is you go in as wide a starfish position as you can to make some kind of contact with anything, right? And I'm in this washing machine being thrown around, and I crushed. I can feel the physical sensation of being crushed by the weight of water. Like, this wasn't like when you wade into the ocean and a big wave hits you. This is like standing on your deck, standing on your floor right now, and a giant mountain, like a 20-foot wave comes in and just crushes you. And this went on for a couple seconds, and then I come to, and I'm flat out on the deck, like starfished like this. And I look over, and Dave is in the same position. And I finally hear all the servos, and the whole boat stops running. Like, you're always hearing the sound of machinery. The boat gets extremely quiet, and the whole crew comes running out. And to their credit, they did the exact right thing. They picked us up, and they dragged us into the breezeway, and they immediately start tearing all our clothes off. Because you got your wets, your sweats, your underwear, everything. Strip us completely naked, and we're bundled up in like wool blankets. They totally wrapped us up like burritos in wool blankets, and they pulled us into the kitchen where the heaters were on. And I'm sitting there shaking. They're like, "Are you okay? You okay?" And it took me a few seconds to come to and kind of, I was like, "Yeah, like I'm all right. I'm all right." Like, what just happened? Well, we had been sitting at like idle, moving maybe 2 knots, and the sea is moving like 1 or 2. We're in like 1 or 2 foot swell, which is very rare to be on the open ocean with 1 or 2 foot swell. And Ron had looked up, and a rogue wave, like it was like a 40-foot rogue wave came up. Now, Ron had been in a rogue wave incident that hit his ship front bow on at night and killed one of the men who was in the bridge. The only reason Ron wasn't killed is because he was asleep downstairs in the berthing area. But for those of you who've not been to sea for an extended period of time, there literally are for real massive, massive, massive rogue waves that somehow, I don't know how they're formed, but maybe it's like the confluence of the frequency of waves. They build up. So we were in 1 or 2 foot swell, and there was a 40-foot wave that came up and hit us from behind. And luckily it was broken up by the sea break, but it hit from behind, smashed over the deck, and because of where Dave and I were sitting, we were thrown into the superstructure of the boat rather than overboarded, right? So we were very lucky in that. And like, it turned out we were okay. We warmed up everything. They gave us new gear. There's tons of new gear on the boat. We got new sweats. We got new wets. And we were all in a little state of shock. And Ron's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to give everybody an 8-hour break. Like, let's just all calm down, right?" And I went out. And I sat on the bench again. Holy shit. And Dave sat down next to me. Holy shit. And he looked at me. And he just like held out his pack of smokes. And I lit one. He goes, "Hey man, are we cool?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, we're cool." He's like, "All right, we're cool." And like, we squashed it and we were done. Never had a problem after that. It was like, I think we just both realized like, holy shit, we just both almost died, so that was like the little, yeah.
That's a wild story.
Yeah.
The fame from the Deadliest Catch, did that affect those guys?
We weren't on the Deadliest Catch, but the guys that were on the Deadliest Catch, no, not at all. Those dudes on the Deadliest Catch, they were dogs. Like, they were just. The thing is that I just want people to know, if you're familiar with the show is extremely sanitized. And the people that were filming were kind of seen as a nuisance because, like, if they really filmed how it really was, a cameraman 100% would have been killed. So they were filming in snatches where they could get, they could get the footage that they needed. But if a cameraman was on crew 24 hours a day, somebody would have died.
2 seasons up there, then you got very burnout, man. What made you throw in the towel and decide to go back up to, I think you went to Baltimore.
That was later. At the time, even though my girlfriend was a hot mess and she was a drug addict, I really just wanted to spend some time at home being a normal person.
Oh, you went back to Seattle.
Yeah, I went back to Seattle, and because I looked on my calendar and there was something ridiculous, like I'd been gone like 27 out of 32 months or something like that.
Had you saved a bunch of money?
No. Save money. I doing drugs, bro. Money was I saving? The money that I saved, I spent on an MMA gym membership at Ivan Salavery. Shout out again to Les Sandusky and Ivan Salavery's MMA. I was training MMA. I had a couple fights with them, but no, of course I wasn't saving money. Who saves money?
Were you still doing drugs the whole time you were up in Alaska?
No, I was completely sober when I was in Alaska, and then when I came back, I was still getting high, but I was very like, because I was doing MMA, and I was like, I wasn't doing it with the frequency that I did before. I really think that going up to Alaska was transformative for me to like kind of get back on the road to sobriety.
How much were you getting paid up there? I'm just curious. I don't think anybody ever.
My first pull when I went up there for 45 days, it was $150 a day tax free, and then my second, I don't remember what I did on Opie, but I remember when I did crab, my first crab pull, I made like 36 grand, in like 2 months, something like that. Then I went up and did Opie, and it was probably similar to that. It was probably 32, 34 grand. And then I did crab again, and it was like a little less. It was like 20.
Would you just go out on the boat for like how long? How long would you be out on the boat?
The whole pull would be like 2 months, but then you would be like the first 2 weeks of that would be shore duty, where you're just getting the boat ready and you're getting the nets ready, and that was sort of like that was kind of comparable to working construction worker hours, 10 hours a day, 12 hours off, or 14 hours off. And then on the boat, you work 20 on, 4 off, 20 on, 4 off, 20 on, 4 off. And then it switches to 18-6s. And then it switches to 12s. And that 12-12 is when you're coming back home to like offload your bycatch. And then you're back on 24s. So it's a grind, dude. It's a hardcore grind.
What was the time off in between? Like you'd go out for 2 months, and then how long would you be off?
I might get this wrong, YouTube, so calm down if I get this wrong. It was a long time ago, and also I had a lot of other shit going on in my life, and I was doing drugs, so I can't really remember. But like from King to Opie, I want to say that was like 3-4 months in between those, and then from Opie to Salmon was like 4 or 5 months, and then from Salmon to King was probably 2 or 3 months.
After 2 years in Alaska, you decided to get a regular job. Why was that a stupid idea?
Because I was too immature to handle having a regular job. I hadn't had a regular job in, 7 years, 8 years? There was no way I could have a regular job. Are you kidding me? I was emotionally a wreck. I was still casually effing around with getting high. And screwed it up. I was doing the high-rise window cleaning, which is crazy again. Again, I'm doing a crazy job. And I screwed all that up. And towards the end of that, that's when I finally came home because I ran out of money. I had all the drug abuse stuff going on, and it finally hit rock bottom because I was dead broke. And I reached out to my cousin Scott, and I was like, "Hey man, can you please pay my rent?" And he was like, "I'm not gonna give you money." That would just be ridiculous. To his credit, and that he should have done that. What kind of idiot would give their like crazy cousin $800 to pay his rent, knowing that money's going to immediately go right up his nose, right? So no, I'm not going to pay your rent, but I'm going to let you move home.
Your cousin offered to buy you a plane ticket to get you out of Seattle. You were spiraling again out of control, bro.
Yeah.
What did that mean? I think you told me like he was the only person in your entire family who gave a crap.
100%. 100%.
What made him different?
Scott Michael Updike. We're cousins. He's, I think, 3 years younger than me. We were raised almost like siblings. Because unlike all the other low energy, low effort shit heels in my family, he's a high energy, high output person. He's a very highly classically trained chef who worked in France at a Michelin starred place, has ran kitchens his entire life. The guy's just, for those of you who not cooks, chefs, real chefs. Those dudes work 60, 70 hours a week their entire lives. And they're in charge of people, and they're in charge of like navigating like relationships with people. And my cousin is just the only person in my family who didn't judge me and knew that I was a real person. And didn't turn his back on me, and like he flew me home. And so in 2011, I think, or 2010, I think it was 2011.
2011.
Yeah, I came home with a duffel bag of stuff and my Xbox, and I was living in my cousin's basement, working night shift at the Food Lion, stocking shelves at the Food Lion across the street.
Riding his bicycle a mile to stock shelves on midnight shift at a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
You were kind of crawling your way back up from rock bottom, dude. What was that like? Did you decided to get sober, or were you still doing drugs?
Well, it wasn't a decision to get sober. I got sober because I didn't have access to it, which turned out to be the best thing for me. I didn't have access to drugs. And to be honest with you, like, obviously he told me, if you're going to live in my house, you can't be getting high. But I can honestly say in the deepest part of my being, like, I was tired of it. I was exhausted. It's not that I wanted to get high. I didn't want to get high because I was like, ooh, drugs are bad. It was like, I was frigging exhausted of living like that. And I came home to my cousin's house, and living with a chef, he had some pretty awesome things to eat. And I think there was just a couple weeks where I ate and I worked and I had a little bit of a physical routine, and I started to remember what it felt like to be like a normal functioning human being.
Did you feel like you were starting to, like, your purpose was coming back? Like maybe you didn't know what the next thing?
No, not at all.
No?
Not at all. Not even remotely close. It was just, man, I'm not getting high and I'm eating normal food and I'm getting up and I'm like being fairly physically active, and it felt like, oh man, this is what that's like. I kind of remember that.
You made the decision to really be sober, dude. Like, what clicked? There's a lot of people that struggle with addiction, man. Like, and I know there is no like secret one-liner, but it's like, what clicked?
It's kind of funny. It was a practical thing rather than a like spiritual, metaphysical.
Sure. But maybe that's like, that can be a thing as much as anything else.
I was too poor to afford it. Like, the cost of getting high is ridiculous. And I was exhausted. I was completely exhausted of getting high. Like, people who, outside of using opiates, right? Because opiates becomes a physical addiction where people get high to avoid getting sick. People who do stimulants for a long time get completely brain fried and cooked. Like, it takes a huge mental exhausting toll on you. And I was completely sick and tired of being exhausted down into my bones. And I finally got to the point where, like, it felt good to be in my cousin's like nice little house with his 2 dogs and his cool wife, and like eating cool food, and like, man, I can get up in the middle of the night and go to the pantry and have some snacks, and like, it just felt like, even though it was very abnormal for me, it was like a new, like, wow, this is what normal people feel like.
Do you think your cousin and his wife know like how much they saved your life?
Oh yeah. So I'm not going to go into my familial stuff, but my cousin's wife and I had a falling out for a very long time, and then we mended it, and we're awesome now. I love her. Shout outs to Candace. But Yeah, of course they do. I'm very, very outspoken with the people that have helped me, how much I love and care about them.
That's awesome because
Yeah.
some people, some people can forget. You started graffiti as a teenager, man, and you quit for the military, and then you kind of came back to it. What drew you back?
Boredom. And then one of my old friends from the neighborhood, he found out that I moved home. He was like, hey, man, I got a cool little spot way up north where you live, because I was living way, way, way up in northern Harford County, far away from Baltimore City. He's like, hey, I got a spot way out there. Do you want to come out and paint? It'll be cool. You know, it was out in the middle of nowhere. Take a long walk to go out there. And we painted a little something. And while I had been gone, all this new fancy paint had come out, right? New fancy paint, new caps, new tools to do the thing with. And we painted something. I still have a picture of it somewhere, but like we painted something. I was like, huh. I'm like still good at this. So weird. It's been so long. It had been since probably 2003 since I'd painted something. Damn near a decade. Probably 2002 since I'd painted something. So almost 10 years. It's like, huh. I can like still do this. And it's pretty fun. All right, cool. I'll go out and paint with you again. Maybe I'll start doodling again. And most vices, a lot of times people are reverting to their prior selves, but this was something that was healthy. Got me outdoors, got me out hunting for spots again. And I was painting very chill places like under bridges and on the highways and byways and things like that. I wasn't out bombing at night and climbing rooftops and shit like that. I was just painting on the low. I didn't have much money for paint. People were giving me paint. I was buying cheap paint, but like it dawned on me like, I can still do this, and I still have the talent to do this. And it kind of came rushing back in one summer.
I think you told me something that I thought was interesting, man. You told me that you threw yourself into painting more than anything, even more than rangering. Why do you think that was?
Well, I want to be correct. I didn't throw myself into painting more than rangering. I've never thrown myself into anything more than rangering. I threw myself.
Maybe it was like maybe you meant more mentally focused, or I don't know.
I threw myself into painting with the same form of passion that I learned from rangering. I don't know why it was painting. I think it's because I had a natural talent for it, and I knew that all the things that I had acquired in my crazy journey up till then had equipped me for success. I had the artistic talent, I had the time, I had the motivation, I had the means, and I had the effing drive to succeed in this thing. And it dawned on me that instead of just going out and like vandalizing or writing my name on things, I could take this weird niche hobby to another level. I could take this and really become somebody in this thing because I had the natural skill set. So I was just applying that Ranger competitive drive to succeed and be good at that. And I was going to apply it to this thing where, to be honest with you, the bar for success was pretty low. You know what I mean? Most graffiti dudes, not all, I know a lot of awesome graffiti guys. Shout outs to TITS, shout outs to BT, shout outs to REK, shout outs to Sear, shout outs to all my DC people, all my North Jersey people, shout outs to Vinny Lost, shout outs to all my Philly family with fucking, SDK and like SC1 and Easy and like Johnny Quest, all them dudes, like all the people, like, you know who you are. But in general, most graffiti dudes are pretty low effort shitheels and they don't have much talent. They're scenesters and they go around and they start their little dramas and their beefs and they suck at their artwork and like they're not applying themselves in something that can be beautiful. And I knew that I had the talent and the desire and drive to apply myself to something and really become good at it. And it felt good. Like the actual act of painting feels good. You know what I mean? Like painting something really big, painting something size of the studio, it feels good. So there was just a confluence of the right thing at the right time. And it was something that I was culturally born from. And I had the ability and like, I just threw myself into it and it started yielding almost immediate results.
Like what type of results?
Well, I decided very early on, in my second, because I had done graffiti hardcore before I joined the military. The second time around, I decided very early on that I wasn't going to paint for other graffiti dudes. I was going to try and paint things as beautiful as I could that regular people like you would drive down the street and see it and be like, whoa, what is that? You know what I mean? Or painting trains, and you see trains go by. Maybe you're stopped at an intersection and you see a million trains go by, or you drive by a train yard and see a million trains, and they're covered in the typical sort of like lowbrow scribble trash that's on trains. And then you see one and you're like, what is that thing, right? I don't know, maybe in this video you'll put up some photos of some of my graffiti and stuff.
Oh,
but
yeah.
my whole goal was to paint things that the layperson could look at. I remember reading an interview with this guy named Wiz, and he had a quote. He was up in Connecticut, and he said, like, you know what, man, you might have 500. He's like, but I've got 2, and people are going to look at those and take photos and look at those things 500 times, right? You're going to paint something that's in someone's eyeballs and out in a second. They're never going to remember who you are. But if you paint something nice, you paint something that's dope in a good spot, people are going to remember it, and you're going to physically imprint your name and your artwork on their mind. And that became my goal. And my goal became bigger and better and more. And I was going to relentlessly chase that because I realized, like, man, there's a bunch of, what's my competition? My competition is graffiti guys. Graffiti guys. My competition is a bunch of stoners and hipsters and wannabe pretend thugs and goofballs who like scribble their name and they don't have any talent. They don't apply themselves. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do more, and I'm going to do it better, and I'm going to make it more beautiful, and I'm going to just forge my way ahead in this thing. And I knew I had it. I just knew that I had what it took. And I went from painting kind of casually to painting thousands and thousands and thousands of trains because I got a job with the railroad. So I would work in the CSX yard during the day, and at night I would go back into the yard with my radio, and I would paint the same trains that I'd put into that yard. And that's part of the reason that I wasn't showing my face on social media for so long.
Yeah, you became one of the most famous train painting graffiti artists in the country. How high did you take it?
Well, I mean, that's really subjective, right? There's a lot of guys out there who might listen to this and be like, I never heard of this effing guy, right? Because the cycle of turnover in graffiti is so high, right?
Did you have like a graffiti name?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it?
Rock, R-O-K.
Okay.
My nickname has been Chris Rock ever since I was a teenager. And that started as a funny thing because when I was a teenager, Chris Rock, the black comedian, he blew up and he was kind of bigger than the Beatles for a short period of time. So it was funny. My friends would call me Chris Rock just as like a little bit of a laugh nickname, you know, compared to the comedian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuck. And the letters R-O-K, not R-O-C-K, but R-O-K. Well, you know, R's and K's are very similar looking to each other. And then an O is symmetrical. So if you approach this from the aesthetic view of how they just look as shapes, R-O-K is very aesthetically pleasing to look at. There's a lot of things you can do because the O is very circular and smooth, and the R and the K are very dynamic. And I wanted something that sounded street and hip hop, you know, like top rock, body rock, you know what I mean? Like it sounded like a hip hop word. It was tough sounding, you know, rock. So that just became my graffiti name at an early age, and I never changed it. A lot of guys change their graffiti names several times through their careers. I never changed mine.
Sponsored by paint companies, featured in magazines and DVDs, flown around for events.
Yeah.
That was like a professional level. Did you get like sponsored? Like, was there money involved?
Yeah. So like I was doing lots and lots and lots of artwork gigs for getting paid. So, hey, I know a guy that needs the side of a logo painted on this thing. And like, there was a period of time where I was living completely on my artwork. I was showing in galleries and I wasn't getting paid by paint companies, but I was sponsored to the point where I was getting lots of free paint and I was getting super steep discounts on paint, like 80% off on paint. And I was getting flown to events all over the country where, like, you know, there'd be an art festival or an art jam, or they'd have a music festival where they're going to have guys come and paint live while music plays and stuff. And I was kind of in that circuit doing that full time. So I've slept in a lot of hotels, and I've been on a lot of flights all over, like Washington and California and Florida and Arizona and Texas to like paint. And yeah, it was going great. But at the end of the day, I wasn't doing it for those reasons. I was doing it for myself, and I was sort of reaping those ancillary benefits. I'm more than happy to just paint in the backyard with 2 people rather than go to these events. But
You semi-retired from painting recently. What made you step back?
I got burnt out on it. I mean, it's something that I started doing when I was 16. And now here in my middle 40s, I feel like, so look, I highly doubt that any of my graffiti partner guys are listening to this. And there's people out there who I very much look up to, like Pace BT, Clowns Tits, Emmett DF. Like, you know, I will never get to the level that you guys were at. And like, as humans, I respect you even more than as artists. And as artists, I have all the respect in the world for you. Those guys are still out there grinding, still painting stuff at an extremely high level. But for me, I felt like I took it to a level where I was satisfied with having accomplished everything that I wanted to in street and graffiti art. I had mastered the craft of painting on trains. I can say this looking to the camera. I mastered the craft of painting graffiti on trains. Mastered it. I was one of the most proficient. Of course, there are other guys more proficient than me, putting out more artwork than me. But talent-wise, I felt like I took that to the highest level possible as far as execution of things on trains. Now, there's guys out there who are executing at a higher level than me. Stray, shout-outs to Stray 1. Ridiculous what you're doing on trains, right? Absolutely ridiculous what Stray is doing right now. And there's other guys out there. I wasn't the best in the world, but I was in the upper echelon of guys, and I was very, very content with like the level that I took it to, a mastery of a craft. And as far as like the ancillary stuff, like my name was known in New York, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, North Jersey, Newark, Patterson, DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Dover, like, you know, Seattle. I had painted all over the country, and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of trains, high level artwork. You know, I mean, I was known. I was happy with what I was doing, and then I got a job with a security clearance. You know what I mean? And my real passionate love is not to just go out and paint walls, legal walls. Like, graffiti has to happen out in the world. And I'm not saying that it has to happen illegally, but it has to happen on the street. And for me, like, I know a lot of the people listening to this aren't going to understand the minutia of the culture of graffiti, but I'm not just a graffiti artist. I'm a train painter. My identity in graffiti is to go out and paint trains. I love painting freight trains. And unfortunately, that's like a big crime. You can't paint freight trains. So like, now having a job with a security clearance, I can't paint trains anymore because it's not worth it for me to ruin the amount of security, monetary security, the career that I have. I love my career right now, and I will defend my career with anything possible. And if that means giving up painting, like, it's what I have to do right now. But like, I will always be a hardcore train painter. And like, not that you guys are listening, but if there's any graffiti dudes out there who happen to listen to this little blip in time and you think you painted more trains with me, bro, I was painting trains while I was a train conductor for CSX. So, you know what I mean? Where are you at? Yeah.
You've held some other jobs too, man. Even if briefly, you were a forest fighter or a forest firefighter during the Paradise campfires in California. What was that experience like? That's not an easy job either.
No. That's a lot of digging and riding around in ATVs. That's a lot of riding around in Polaris and digging. That's the vast majority of what that is. But that was, I just did that one season. I didn't do that too long, but like, when we landed in Chico, the sun was almost blotted out from the sky from all the smoke. And they put us up in temporary housing at an Elks Lodge. And I remember the first thing I did when I walked in there on the Elks Lodge, they had this big display up, and it had photos of all these people that were missing, not dead, but people that were missing. And almost all of them were elderly people. And that just hit me so deeply because Chico was such a beautiful, nice area to live at. And I eventually went down to the Paradise camp, and I eventually went down to that Paradise Valley, and I saw how quickly that fire had spread through there and how devastated that area was. And like, that really made me feel a lot of empathy for those people, because a lot of those people were middle-class people that worked their whole lives to retire in a nice little valley in California. And many of them were killed within minutes from that fire starting because of the way the valley was shaped and the way the wind went. And like, yeah, like I felt like I was doing something real and significant and serious there, and I'm glad I did it. I don't think at the time I was prepared to be confronted with as much loss of life as there was out there. But I'm glad I did it.
You mentioned having cop friends in the BJJ world. How did you get into jiu-jitsu?
I was exposed to jiu-jitsu as a Ranger. I was kind of messing around with jiu-jitsu a little bit, and then doing MMA when I lived on the West Coast. And then when I first came back to the East Coast, joined a Gracie jiu-jitsu gym, the kind where you turn in your little card, you get your hole punch and everything like that. Not doing it seriously. And then life got chaotic again. I joined another gym. Shout outs to Kenny Brown in Second Gear. Like, absolutely all the respect in the world for Kenny Brown. But there was just never a period in my life where I could like put together enough time to like really settle down and dedicate myself to training. I always wanted to. Deep love for it. Deep love. And, you know, I self-identify as a grappler. But then finally later in life, I was able to get some stability, and like I was like powerlifting, and I was lifting, and like, I know you lift and you lift heavy, but like me, I don't like lifting. I lift because I have to, and I did not like powerlifting. Every powerlifter I know, every serious powerlifter I know has had like some ridiculous, devastating injury, right? Like they always have like a ruptured hamstring or their back explodes, just like real powerlifters. Every powerlifter I know has been injured terribly, which is ironic because I'm in like a combat sport that you're a blue belt. You were a blue belt. Like,
I still am a blue belt.
he still is a blue belt. I'm a purple belt, so I can tell him what to do.
He skips warm-ups.
Right. I just show up in leg lock. But I needed something to engage my mind, and I had the great fortune to move to a tiny little farm out in the middle of nowhere, and there was a little jiu-jitsu gym out there called The Mount. And so much love and so much respect for Jim Herman, Ahmed Jones, and Laura. And like, I'm so glad that you guys came into my lives, because I finally found a little gym that engaged me, and I felt like I was part of a family. And that's where the second half of my jiu-jitsu journey started. I started at The Mount. I ended up in a couple other gyms. Shout out to Standard Jiu-Jitsu in Rockville. Shout out to Baltimore Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Baltimore City. And shout out to Mike and the guys over at Rising Tide. But if anyone on my current jiu-jitsu journey, not that this name means anything to anyone else out there, but shout out to Brad Pearson and Brody Halb Foster. I went from being a guy that did jiu-jitsu to a real grappler because of those two people. And yeah, man, I'll rip your leg off right now if you want me to.
No, I'm good. I appreciate it, though. Thanks for the offer. How does jiu-jitsu help with the demons that you've carried, bro?
You know, like, I have a hot take on this. You know, people talk about the gym as my therapy, and like, yes, the gym is therapy to everybody, but for me, jiu-jitsu, I think the real thing that it did was it gave me a very distinct sense of order, right? With like the way that you drink, the way that you eat, the way that you sleep, the things you put into your body, because like, if you're going to get on that mat, and I don't have to tell you, dude, you better have your MF in mind right when you get on that mat, because somebody's going to beat the shit out of you if you're not, right? So like, you kind of, when you're going to go get on the mat in the evening, Like I'm an evening guy. Some guys are maniacs and they train in the morning, right? I don't know if you're a morning or an evening guy.
Evening, bro. I tried the mornings. Those guys are special.
Those of you out here listening, if you're one of those 5 a.m.
breed.
morning guys, you're a friggin' psychopath, and like you deserve all the brutal beatings that you get.
Yeah.
The jiu-jitsu before work guys, I can't even comprehend those guys. But I'm an evening guy too, right? So when you go to train in the evening, you kind of have to have your day set up. You got to eat at the right time. You got to consume fluids at the right time. You got to have the adequate amount of rest, and you got to have the adequate amount of prep and then deload afterwards, right? So what happens is if you're serious about grappling and you're not just out here effing around, and you were serious, you got your blue belt 1 stripe at least, right?
Mhm.
Maybe more. Where do you?
I'm going back.
Okay, but blue belt with a stripe, right? So you've been invested in grappling enough to know that like you have to have order. And to me, it was finally having physical order and discipline every single day to drag yourself in on the mat. Look, I'm sure many of you out there who listen to this have trained in BJJ, but those of you who haven't, I don't care who you are, you go out there and you get on the mat, no matter how badass you are, no matter how big and strong you are, maybe if you got a little taekwondo background, I don't care what you are, you're going to get your MF and ass whipped. Bad. You're going to get humiliated. I don't care who you are. You're going to go out there and you are going to get humiliated, and it's going to hurt. And it takes a special kind of person to continue to drag yourself back to now I'm starting to unlock things. Now I'm starting to understand things. And like, you know, you take it to a level now where it's like, it's not magic. It's not magic at all. It's just really, really hard work.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, I think that what they say a black belt is just a white belt that just continued showing up, dude.
I know what purple belt is. You know what I mean? Like,
and to your point, man, you're right. Jiu-Jitsu doesn't give a about your personal problems.
Oh, they don't.
It doesn't care how bad of a day you had. It doesn't care if you're not getting along with your significant other. It doesn't care if you just got in a car wreck, if you are financially unstable, bro. Like none of that matters. Jiu-Jitsu cares about nothing. And maybe that's, you know, I think that definitely is a lore. I remember when I was training hard, I started at Briggs MMA in El Paso. Shout out to Jesse Briggs. Good human, man. I had a lot going on in my life, dude, and I used to love it because you go to jiu-jitsu and for that hour, bro, like all you can focus on is
everything
jiu-jitsu.
else
Yes, man.
falls
Yes.
away.
Yeah.
The thing that I really like about it is like, if you do this journey long enough, it doesn't matter how big, small, short, tall, athletic, unathletic, genetically gifted, fat, obese, stupid, smart, autistic, ADD, you're going to find out something that you're good at.
Yeah.
And you're going to find out your particular style. It doesn't matter who you trained with or like master this guy or system that. It doesn't matter. You're going to find out what you do well and things that work for you. And like that I actually kind of really like. Like there's a few little things that I do pretty well now as a purple belt that I'm like happy to know about. Like, you know, I'm like a high clinch throw by guy. Like I'm an underhook series guy. I'm like a leg locker. Like, you know, I know my game.
Yeah.
And that's cool. It took a long time to get there. Like, you know, I remember being a white belt, be like, yeah, man, I got great side control. Now, you don't have shit when you're a white belt. You have nothing. You have nothing, right?
We were talking about this last night, man. I have, you know, and it's been a while. I have a really solid, you know, back defense, dude, because when I first started at the gym, I'm a bigger guy, man, even though I didn't have any training. Like, and you go to a gym, bro, especially if there's other, you know, maybe lower belts, but getting pounded on. So everybody wanted to just take, and I went to a gym with some brawlers, man. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, man, I spent a lot of time on my back, dude. So I learned I don't think I hit a sub for 6 months, bro. I didn't hit a submission my first 6 months of jiu-jitsu.
I mean, look, I'm a purple belt at trains at an extremely competitive gym. And like, I'm at the point now where I'm cannon fodder for black belts. I'm just danger enough that black belts have to stay honest with me. And then I juggle white belts.
Yeah.
And like my favorite person to train with is an untrained bodybuilder or a cop. If you're watching this and you're a bodybuilder and you're 260, please come to the gym so I can just rip your face off. That's just the most, I get so much joy out of crushing bodybuilders and cops. That just,
One of the things
fills me with joy.
One of the things that I always thought was like, there is no cardio like jiu-jitsu cardio. There's nothing really you can do to, maybe the assault bike and
Maybe swimmers.
yeah, maybe, but
I trained with a guy at the old gym who was a collegiate swimmer, and he had an engine.
Yeah.
And then obviously wrestlers, but wrestling is still
but
grappling.
wrestling is like a form of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
man.
it's all grappling.
Yeah. I remember that when I was training at another gym, shout out to the guys at Zen Mixed Martial Arts down in El Paso as well. But there was a couple Army officers that came in, and they were, I remember dude Jake I think he wrestled at VMI. And comes in as a white belt, and you're just like, oh, it's a white belt. I had my blue belt. Dude, college wrestlers, he was a D1 wrestler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that dude,
Different level.
There was a couple of them that I think they would like be at the gym for like 3 months and then finally get a blue belt, man, just so people would like mistake them to.
Well, like if
hurt.
you wrestled collegiately and you join an AMI tournament, you have to enter as a blue belt.
Yeah,
that's a rule. But like if you're out there and you're listening, and you're like a jacked on T powerlifter dude, 260, you see red, pleat, bro, I will wrestle you right now. I don't care.
Yeah, and I think jiu-jitsu has really caught on, especially with former military dudes, man, because I think, honestly, other than my military friends, my closest friends I met doing jiu-jitsu, like John Scans.
For sure.
A bunch of doctors, actually.
Yeah.
They're just, there's something in shared suffering.
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's a shared suffering thing.
It's a bunch of people that, generally speaking, are on a quest for self-betterment.
Yeah, that's
what it comes down to.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is a greit mental health thing too, man. If you're out there and you find yourself struggling and you're looking for a community and you're too old to join the military or whatever, or you just need something, go to a jiu-jitsu gym. Find the right gym, because not all of them are the same.
Show up, be humble, and get
Yeah,
your
bro.
hygiene straight. And if you can do those 3 things, you're fine.
And even if you're not humble, dude, you'll get humbled real quick.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Show up and don't be humble. It'll go great for you.
Yeah, they call them mat enforcers, man. You can always find the mat enforcers at the gym, man. Some retard shows
I'm
up.
at that point in my life where I'm kind of very low key a mat enforcer.
Yeah.
I got a little bit, but yeah.
Mat enforcers are like, if a new guy from another gym shows up, or some bodybuilder shows up and tries to like manhandle like one of the girls in the class or something, then the black belt or the mat enforcer.
I'll be like, hey, hey, Asher and Chris, go tune that dude up.
Yeah, you will get punished, man. Punished, dude. Yeah. Shout out to all the mat enforcers out there for keeping the gyms a good place.
Shout out to Jordan Griffin. Shout out to John Cardwell. Shout out to Danny Clancy. Shout out to Connor Miller. Shout out to Les Sandusky. Shout out to Trey Fisher. Shout out to the whole Nine Hammers clique. Yeah, mat enforcers all the way.
As we're kind of, on the back half of this, this marathon, dude, of just life lessons, man. It's been awesome. Kind of, man, just getting to know you through this process as we prep for this podcast. Just even hearing parts of your story for the first time, man. It's almost, this is almost like an audio book, dude. I don't even know what we'd call the title of it, but I just have, some final. Just kind of like a final chapter of questions. You've said good things happen to good people. Do you believe in karma?
That's complicated. On the surface level, I want to say yes, but I don't think it's karma. I think I kind of thought about this mathematically, right? If you're a good person and you're constantly reinforcing good social behavior, right? Good person acts like a good person around him, right? And you're constantly reinforcing good social behavior and you're making good impressions on people around you, right? Well, over time, statistically, you catch more breaks because people are like, they might have met you one time and they're like, oh, Asher Schuler, yeah, that's a good dude. You know what I mean? And that little blip or that little word of you socially carries on somewhere else. So what happens is, as your network and your reputation grows socially as being a good person, statistically, over time, you catch more breaks because people are like, oh, that's a good person. I'll do something good in return. If you're a narcissistic shitheel and you're an asshole and you're always down and you're bringing people down around you, that's why, like, oh man, I just got the worst luck. No, you don't have the worst luck. It's just that statistically, you've alienated so many people around you. It's much more difficult for you to catch breaks socially. That's why, like, a lot of these people that I grew up around will never succeed, because they'll never succeed because, like, if I consistently know or I've heard that you're a jerk, why would I go out of my way to help you?
It's a great point.
It's sheer statistics. I swear to God.
I tell my kids, man, be a good human.
Yeah.
Like, be nice to people. You never know who the next school shooter is. You don't know who the next congressman is. Like, be nice, man. Like, and you never know what's going on in somebody's life. I have a problem with people that have road rage, right? I think it's probably stems from my time in law enforcement because, you know, I would get calls to these incidents and it's like, somebody cuts you off on the highway, bro. You don't know they could have just found out that their mom has cancer. They could have just got divorced. They could have just lost their job. Like, you know, you just never know what's going on in other people's lives. So I think sometimes we get, and I think this is to your point about being a good person, we get so fixated on our own life that we don't give a shit about other people. And I think I just told, you know, one of my other kids this the other day, like, focus on doing something good for other people. Stop. I think there's something to like fixing yourself and worrying about your own mental health and taking care of yourself. But sometimes people are so in tune to themselves, they miss an opportunity to bless other people. And there's magic that happens. And when I say bless other people, I'm not even talking financially. I'm talking a text message. Hey, bro, thinking about you. I know you have a job interview today, man. Good luck. Or, hey, dude, I know you're going through it, dude. You're not alone. I love you. Whatever, bro. Like, you know what I mean? I think maybe that's not karma, to your point. Maybe it's just be good and good shit happens. I always used to tell my kids too, man, good things happen to good people.
I swear to God, I've thought about this a lot. It's a statistical law of averages thing.
How do you separate the trauma that motivated you from the trauma that nearly destroyed you? That's a deep one.
Well, the truth is that I'm still traumatized, not from the war, but I'm still traumatized by my childhood. And it's not all good. You know, I'm not always turning that into some positive. But I will say it's been an extremely deep motivator to help me succeed in all the aspects of my life to the level that I can, right? I have such a fear of being a low output person. I have such a disgust and loathing of people that are dirty, people that are low energy, people that are like willfully ignorant, that because of my trauma, I will do anything in my power to be as distant from that phenotype as possible. I will never, ever, ever have anyone in my life look at me and be like, oh, you know that dude, Chris? Like, dude's a friggin' loser. You know what I mean? Oh, that guy's dirty. Oh, that guy's word is no good. You know what I mean? I will never be that. And like, so I think that trauma has motivated me through whatever way to like get to the opposite side of the bridge of those things. I don't know if that trauma I don't know if that motivation really comes from a good place or not, but it just is what it is.
But I think it doesn't always have to come from a good place, man.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point,
some of the most best people that you and I both know. I mean, you're a man of honor and integrity and somebody that I'd consider to be a friend. And look, man, I think, you know, we're not defined by how we fall down. I think we're defined by how we get back up.
Well, look, one of the best people I know, is a very, very, very accomplished black belt. He's one of the most accomplished black belts in the DMV, Brad Pearson, if you're watching this. And he's one of the most upright, high integrity, kindest, best dudes. You'll never meet a person in her life that's met Brad Pearson that'll have anything bad to say about him because he's such a purely good dude. But he grew up totally different than me, right? I mean, he's had the traumas in his, but generally speaking, he's lived a pretty good life. And my buddy Brody and I kind of laugh. We're like, we can't quite understand why he's so mentally well balanced, right? But Brad has arrived to the same point in his life that I want to get to, right? And he got there a completely different way than I did. But it doesn't really matter how you arrive at that point. The only thing that matters is that you are at that point. I think all of the other stuff behind it, the internal motivations, the machinations of the mind are really sort of subjective to the objectivity of like, are you living like a disciplined, good life?
And I think about that from a driving perspective, right? Like you're driving a car. You don't drive your car staring in the rearview mirror. You'll crash.
Yeah.
Every now and then you check your rearview mirror to make sure you're not going to get in a wreck or maybe that, you know, you avoid something. And I think too, and I've learned this on my own as well, like you have to look forward. You can't walk. I mean, we don't walk backwards, right? Like we're not defined by, you know, what happened to us. that's just a piece of who we are, right? And there's plenty of people out there that woe is me. And look, a whole nother topic of conversation is, and I just had it on my most recent podcast, before you came on, is the hospice has to be part of the rescue, man. Some people just don't want to get better. And I've learned to just really,
we could talk about that subject forever.
And veterans have some of that issue as well too, man. Right. And so I'm very cautious of my time. I'm cautious who I invest in. And I think time is our most precious commodity.
Here's the number one thing this is the number one lesson I've learned through the whole entirety of my life. If you're out there and you're not, and like, I'm not some paragon of mental health, right? But this is the one thing I've learned. The number one thing you can do to immediately change your life and how you feel right now, right this second, is stop saying negative things about yourself.
Amen.
That's it. It's like the most simple thing. You can even fake it. Like, I remember learning about this from someone else. I learned this in a very painful way, but like, you can just literally sit there, because if you speak those words, your brain kind of doesn't know the difference. But if you just literally sit there and say something silly, like, you know what? I'm a good person. I'm going to have a great day today. That sounds ridiculous, right? But the second you change your self-narrative is the second that good things start happening to you. And I think that's why a lot of like hyper successful people, let's take athletes, for example, like a lot of people that are at the top of their professions, their self-narrative is just unbelievably positive and confident. Maybe sometimes it even gets like confused with arrogance, right? But if your self-talk is negative, it's going to permeate every constituent particle of your being. The number one thing you can do right now, right this instant, is to talk kindly to yourself, right? Like, you should be the person that you love the most, because you're literally only you. You know what I mean? Like, you're the only one of you. We only get one shot at this whole thing. I'm not some mad philosopher or anything. I don't know anything more than anyone else. I know that for me personally, when I stopped saying bad things about myself and started saying started forcing myself to say good things about myself, that's when good things started happening.
Hey, man, you've been around the most elite men, Rangers, fishermen, bikers. What makes a man, bro?
I don't think there's any clear-cut answer to that. I really don't. I really don't think. I think there's masculine qualities that we can all strive for. But there's I don't think there's one phenotype for masculinity. I would say probably the base phenotype for masculinity that I can think of is someone who's willing to put in a high amount of effort to achieve some form of personal goal or desire or need. High effort, high effort, high effort. I don't care if like you're a fat golf dad that takes care of your kids. You know what I mean? But guess what? Work your ass off and take care of your family. I don't care if you're like the biggest, strongest bodybuilder. You got there by working, by effort. If you're a tier 1 unit guy, you got there by maximum effort. If you're an athlete, if you're just anything. There is no like roadmap to masculinity, but I think all masculinity shares the trait of like focused high effort. That's just my take on it.
I got a couple questions on addiction and recovery.
Oof. All right.
13 years sober, dude. What works for staying clean?
Getting the fuck away from your source to get high. Straight up. That and having like discipline in your life. Getting away from the source and be like having some form of like physical discipline. Something. Even if it just means going out and taking a walk. You got to have physical movement discipline, and you got to get away from the source.
You've said some addicts are just low effort losers, but you had legitimate trauma. How do you differentiate?
I think anybody that ends up in addiction has some form of legitimate trauma. There's very few people that just decide one day they're going to wake up and start getting high. I think what differentiates addicts is how they get out of addiction. And that getting out of addiction of any kind, whether it be stimulants, opiates, alcohol, sex addiction, gambling, anything, food addiction, right? It requires painful effort. And I just think that like a lot of people aren't willing to go through the physical discomfort that it takes to like break addiction.
Yeah, I used to say life is the struggle, and the struggle is life. The moment things get too easy for people, I don't know, man. I think we were always meant to struggle. And
It
it doesn't always
sucks.
have to be like miserable struggle,
know?
but I mean, I think we're meant to. And you know, dude, if you think about it, just 200 years ago, you had to fight for your food, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Now, all we have to do is fight a line at a grocery store.
You know,
what I
like,
mean?
there's kind of an unofficial motto of the regiment where we say, hey, sucks to suck. And that kind of is like the motto for life, you know?
Yeah. What would you tell someone in active addiction right now?
The narrative that you're telling yourself is bullshit. Whatever that narrative is, if you're in active addiction right now, the narrative that you're telling yourself is bullshit. And number one, you should just really like take a second and like think about being kind and compassionate to yourself. Think of the one person, there's someone in your life somewhere that you love more than anyone else, or that you did love more than anyone else and they passed away. You should treat yourself as kindly as you would treat that person right now.
Amen. How do you fill the void that drugs used to fill?
Me personally, I don't have a need. That sounds so pretentious, but I don't like me personally right now. The thought of doing drugs disgusts me.
Is that because of the person you were when you were doing drugs? And
No, it's because I physically feel good now.
Mm.
And I don't need, at this point in my life, through all the work I've done, I don't need drugs and alcohol to kind of like right now, I want to maximize the time that I have right now. If I could do anything, if I had the powers of Thanos, I would stop the clock right now and extend this year of my life into infinity because I feel great. I'm happy. And I think people are using, at least in my experience, they're using real drugs. We're not talking real drugs. They're using drugs to make things stop.
Yeah, it's a great point. This episode is brought to you by TitansArms.com, your trusted source for research-grade SARMs. These third-party tested compounds are formulated to support research into tissue selective activity, especially in muscle and bone. Titan offers free nationwide shipping, a wide selection in both capsules and droppers, and oversized 90 capsule and 90 ml bottles. Everything is compounded in the USA, raising the bar for quality and reliability. From the lab to your door, Titan delivers transparent data and premium service. That's TitansArms.com, forged by research, not opinions. When you lost the Ranger Regiment, you lost your purpose. How do you build purpose now?
Oh man, that's extremely difficult to answer. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I have the answer for that right now.
I love that honesty.
All I know is that right now I feel good. I'm feeling happy that I'm good to the people around me. I'm indulging in the things that make me happy. I've got a good career. I don't know if I'll ever fulfill the purpose that I had when I was in regiment, but I can also say that maybe that purpose that I had in regiment wasn't entirely non-toxic, you know?
Yeah, I got some legacy questions. You know, what do you want veterans struggling with transition to know?
I think that this is the lesson that took me a really long time to learn. Like, it doesn't matter what badass unit you were from or what pogue shithole you were from. Every single veteran out there who gave a shit about their career struggles afterwards, every single one. I used to think that D-boys, Delta guys, CAG guys were on this like unapproachable pinnacle that couldn't even be fathomed by a normal person. There's no way that a Delta Sergeant Major could get out and struggle. I mean, this guy's like, these guys are gods on a mountain in like Zeus. And coming to have somebody from the unit become a very close mentor to me, somebody who's in the Ranger Hall of Fame right now, reveal to me like, look, man, these guys struggle more than you could ever effing believe because the job is abnormal. You know what I mean? You don't go from the abnormal job to the normal world, quote unquote, and everything's freaking hunky dory. So it doesn't matter if you're from the most badass quad nod tier 1 unit in the world, or it doesn't matter if you're a National Guard dude putting fuel in like Blivets somewhere.
Anyone that gave a shit about their job in the military when they get out is going to struggle. You're definitely not the only one.
Yeah, amen to that. The shame of getting kicked out of the regiment versus the pride you had serving in the regiment. How do you reconcile both of those things in your mind?
I don't know if I have, and I don't know if I ever will. You know, that's the truth. I can only be proud now of what I did, but I wish I could go ahead and take that shame away. Because like when I talk to certain people, it still makes me feel bad. You know.
What would you tell a young kid thinking about joining the Ranger Regiment?
I've had this conversation with quite a few people. And one of them, good friend of mine, Andrew Gallinet, Staff Sergeant Andrew Gallinet, just got out of the Ranger Regiment. And I knew him when he was a teenager beforehand. I knew him all through his career. And now I know him as a post-Ranger Ranger Regiment NCO. I've had this talk with a lot of people. If you're out there and you're a young guy and you're thinking about joining SOF, I'm going to tell you right now that it's not glamorous. You're going to get hurt. Your friends are going to get killed. You're going to be away from your family. If you got a girlfriend right now, you better say bye-bye, right? The regiment especially does not care about any of your shit. When you get to the regiment, you better be a for real fanatic. A for real fanatic. This better be something that's so deeply ingrained in your humanity that the option of not getting there is horrific to even think about. It requires a level of dedication and fanaticism that most of you out there cannot comprehend. And that's just the facts. If you're on the fence about it, you ain't going to make it, bro. Straight up. I don't care how big you are, how strong you are. If it was a physical fitness contest, they would just go get like the winner of the CrossFit games and those would be Rangers, but it's not. If you want to get to a SOF unit, especially a tier unit of any form, you don't even need to listen to me. You already know it. If there's any doubt in your mind, oh, this might be something I'm going to fuck around with one day, you're not going to make it. And frankly, we don't want you. It requires a level of spiritual fanaticism to get there, and then you got to stay there. That's it. I mean, if you're going there, you don't need to listen to me and Asher on a podcast to tell you. You're already going to know. I knew before I got there, I knew that I was going to get there, and I knew I was going to do anything that it took to get there. Just like Nate, just like Les, just like Trey, just like John, just like Chad, just like all my friends, just like Pat, just like Vic, everybody. You knew I would do anything. I would do anything to get there. And I'll do anything to stay here. And if you don't have that level of blood level fanaticism, you simply will not make it. And to be honest with you, if you don't have that blood level of fanaticism, the same level of fanaticism that Danny has, that all these guys have, you are not going to make it, and we don't want you. And it sounds crazy, but that's the truth. You're not just going to casually walk in there, because that's a spiritual journey. That's a destiny journey. If you want to go be cool and wear kit, bro, go buy some airsoft shit and join the gym. The stakes there are too high.
It's a real nugget, man.
That's the real shit, is what that is.
Kind of my, some final thoughts on you, the human.
Okay.
Your story touches on like every major issue, bro. Childhood trauma, military service, addiction, suicide, redemption. What's the message, dude? Like, what do you want your message to be?
I don't really think I have a message. I think
We just spent about 6 hours giving a message.
I'll say that I don't have a message. I just want people to look back and be like, hey, you know what? He was a good dude. My very, very good friend who was a spiritual ranger, an awesome ranger, Pat Bacon, he just told me, he's like, look, man, there's only two outcomes. You're either a good dude, and sorry, YouTube, or you're it. It's binary, right? And it doesn't matter all the mistakes you've made in your life. If you're a good dude, you're a good dude. And you know what? You could have the greatest success in the world, but if you're shit, people know it, right? It's binary. You know that.
Yeah.
It's binary. You're either a good dude or you're not a good dude. And the only thing that medals, achievements, units, none of that matters. The one thing that a fighting man can strive for
The greatest honor that a fighting man can strive for is to be remembered by his friends as a good dude. That's it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kind of on the last, like, you know, legacy question, I guess, if you will. You've been through hell and you've come out on the other side, and there's people going through hell right now, dude. Tell people what's on the other side of hell.
If you can get through it and you can turn it around, there is more material, day-to-day happiness and health than you can ever possibly imagine. I never in a million years thought that I'd be hood rich or like, you know, able to do the things I do. You know, it's a good point talking to Kevin Tillman. Kevin Tillman struggled mightily after everything that happened. And he told me that, man, you know what happiness is? I just go to Starbucks and buy whatever I want. There's such a beauty in that. Like, you know, I can just get on Amazon and buy whatever I want. And that's not because of money. That's because of like safety and security.
Yeah.
If you're going through it right now and you persist, you can end up somewhere where you're safe and warm and happy.
Well, bro, I personally, on a personal level, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me in your awesome home, dude.
Yeah, I like your story. I told you this from the very beginning. I told you this when I picked you up from the airport. Like I know this story is going to impact people, dude. And you know, the whole goal, the whole reason I started this podcast was to try to put some positive message back. Dude, the news sucks. The world's always been burning. The only difference is now is you can watch it 24/7 if you want to.
Right.
I just, you know, I'm thankful for people like you. I'm thankful for your story of, you know, redemption and second and third and fourth chances. Cause there's a lot of people out there that, you know, think they've come to the end of the road, dude. Your life is a choose your own adventure book, and you can still choose good. And you're a perfect example of, you know, you made a couple bad decisions in life and then
More than a couple.
got some breaks, made some bad more. And look at you, man. Like I see you now. I see your messaging on not just the internet, just who you are as an individual, dude. So thank you, bro. Thank you on behalf of our brand, but also personally. And this definitely won't be the last time that we see you. I have so if you're out there, dude, and this message helped you, you felt good about it, or you think somebody else needs to hear this message, dude, please, man. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. That helps our following. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, dude, please follow us and leave a little comment. That helps the algo. We're getting tons and tons of downloads.
Roast me in the comments. Go for it, please.
We're getting tons and tons of like downloads on Spotify, man, but there's hardly anybody following us. That helps. I used to listen to these myself on podcasts. I'm like, dude, why do they always say that? But it helps the algorithm and it helps to push our message out a little farther. Shout out to both of our sponsors today, Alpha Country Nutrition and Titan Coaching. Titan Coaching, if you're thinking about going into special operations or law enforcement, there's a coaching program that they've got up and running, man.
These are both brands that I'm closely aligned with. Yeah. And like, it's funny, I was aligned with these brands before I even got here. Both of these brands are the real deal. Shout outs to Brandon Alvarez with Titan and shout outs to Alpha Country.
Yeah, Ryan Thorne from Titan Coaching, but also Titan Performance.
And their apparel is bar none.
Alpha Country?
Yeah,
man. They're I talk a lot about their supplements. You can see
their gear is awesome.
Yeah. Spencer has done a lot of work. It's pretty much the only workout clothes I wear anymore, even though I have my own t-shirts. And then last but not least, man, if you want to support our podcast, this thing's not even profitable yet. We pay for everything out of pocket. It's not cheap. I'm trying to stay off Patreon and charge people. No shade on anybody who does that. But if you go to www.thevanguardwall.com, we have some pretty cool shirts, sweatshirts, hats, stickers. We even just got some artwork you can hang up on the wall. It's pretty cool, man. So support us, man. We really appreciate that. We're hoping to raise some money to donate to Coast Foundation, All True, and a couple other nonprofits, War Party Ranch, that have some really good missions. And so hopefully, man, if we can raise some money from our apparel, not only does it help cover our costs, but it also helps these nonprofits that we believe in. So anyway, man, thanks for everybody for tuning in, dude. I'm getting tons of messages. If you've DM'd me on social media and I haven't responded, I'm not blowing you off, man. I don't have a big staff. And by staff, I mean, it's pretty much me and my dog.
You can follow me on IG if you don't already. It's Rock275. There's a lot more on my IG page than just your typical bro vet nonsense. There's a lot of good little like modern history channel on there, I think.
Yeah.
Some art, some fighting.
And we'll
stuff.
put all your links in the bio. So in the meantime, man, stay with us. We got some great content coming up, and we appreciate everybody's support. Stay safe out there, and if you can't be safe, be violent out here.